Well, howdy, everybody. That's right. You have joined the world famous PM in the PM now. That's right. Pong and Mav have gone worldwide. Thanks to Rand Althor, of course. And I might be a little dramatic here, but we're going to eat this up for a little bit. All right. So, but anyways, welcome everybody. It is PM in the PM. That's right. It is May the 5th, 2022. Already May. My God, we are just a little over a month away from showcase time for Xbox and, of course, Keeley's Summer's Games Fest. We got things heating up around the industry. This is the best time of the year to be doing shows like this or to be out there in the chat listening to shows like this. Speaking of the chat, you all are absolutely looking amazing. Thank you all for showing up, everybody who's already here. We will welcome others as they come in because obviously Mav and I love you all. Look, last week, go check out that show if you haven't yet. I'm sure most of the people in chat already have, but if you're listening to this later, go check out PM in the PM last week. We had two amazing guests on in my brother from another, our brother from another, Mr. Steel Rain, and of course, the man with a million, Mr. Rand Althor. If you want to hear on our thoughts on what the showcase was going to be like and a bunch of other good stuff, go check out that episode. And guess what? Again, normally this is a two-man show. But for the second week in a row, we have a guest. So before I get to my co-host, one of my favorite men in the industry of podcasting, Mav, we're going to get to our guest first. This man right here, for anybody who doesn't know, and you probably don't know him, but he has appeared a few times on the Fun Speculation channel. This man may be very quiet, very confident, calculating as he speaks, but he is very bullish when it comes to his numbers. That's right. This man is in the investment field. And you can also find him writing some absolutely spectacular words of wisdom over on lordsofgaming.net. And if you're not always following him on Twitter, please do, because he gives out free gold on the regular basis about stuff that's going on. So you definitely want to go check him out on Twitter too. That's right. This evening, you're going to find out why Mav and I love this dude. He is a freaking amazing member of this community. He goes by CMBR_Ray on Twitter, but he's affectionately known around here as Little Ray Ray. That's right. Everybody put your hands together. Put those emojis up in the chat for Ray Ray. How are you doing, brother? Good to have you on. Thank you for joining us tonight to talk some business side of the industry, which Mav and I love to do, but you come with the facts. So how you been, man? What you been up to?
Wow, Pong, what an intro. Thank you. Knocked out of the park. And maybe a little bit of puffery on my, I don't know if it's gold, the advice I'm giving out, but I'm certainly giving out opinions. That's for sure.
It's gold, brother.
Thank you both for having me on again. I know we've had a couple of chats across a couple of different shows, and it's always great to chat with both of you and to talk a couple of my favorite things, investments and video games. So really excited for the show tonight. Thanks.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate you being here. Look, I know in the green room you were telling us you've been working ridiculous hours. It is busy as all get out. Have you had a chance to game at all? Have you been hitting anything?
A little bit. Most recently, I've been playing MLB, the show 2022.
Nice.
Got a starting pitcher on the Twins going to the show now, so that's the path. And then the most recent big game I got kind of immersed in was Elden Ring. I'm about 40 hours in. I think I've seen maybe a third of this. I don't know how the
maybe it's huge.
As soon as I think I'm getting to a stop, like it just keeps going. So that'll be the next one I take some time to actually fully enjoy and not just piecemeal 1 hour, 2 hour. It's one of those games you kind of have to bash your head against it for a little bit before it opens up.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, hey, those are some good selections. And shout out to Game Pass for that MLB showing up in there. That is awesome. And forgot to add during my intro, a little extra flavor for Ray tonight because he is a Midwestern boy just like myself. And actually, we're pretty close to being neighbors. That's how close he is to me. So shout out a little extra to him as well. And shout out to the twins who are kicking butt right now. Not doing so bad. Not doing too shabby this year.
Yeah.
But
hot start.
Hot start. You're right. Now on to the one, the only, the owner of this channel, the man who is very accident prone these days, who almost died before the show, which would have been awful, right? Because I would have really missed doing PM in the PM. I would have missed him per se, but I would have missed doing PM in the PM, right? But thank you for not dying tonight, Mav, as you were trying to move 250-pound pools in the pouring rain. Listen, brother, besides almost, causing yourself physical pain. Well, actually you did. You almost thought you had to go to the hospital. But anyways, besides that, what you been up to this week, man? How you been?
Pretty good, man. Just been playing games and working, same old, getting stuff done. Haven't been able to play as much as I've been wanting to, but we were able to have an awesome stream the other day playing Halo on that was on my birthday. We had a fun stream. And you even hung out. You had a headache that day, and you just started showing up. I could tell it was bad because you were pretty quiet.
I was just listening to you guys have fun. I had nothing to contribute. I was just.
I felt bad.
I was trying to keep my. I was just trying. It was just nice to have you guys talking in my ears because it kind of took my mind off of my headache.
Yeah, you can kind of
trying to play some
listen
games.
to the conversations and stuff.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun playing some custom games, and I checked out Loot River a little bit yesterday. Played a little bit of NBA, some Forza Horizon 5. I've been trying to focus on getting my Game Pass rewards and stuff done as well. Sometimes I forget and I put it off, but man, that stuff, it adds up, dude. Like, it really does. So if with the cloud too now, it's so easy to just launch these games and just try and do what you need to do just to get some points real quick. So I love that. But yeah, man, just been busy. I did almost break my arm today. I thought I broke it, and I was surprised as hell that I didn't break it. It could be broken, maybe. I just don't know. Maybe I'm still just like in the state of numbness, but it is in one direction, so that's good. But yeah, it was fun earlier dealing with that. Kate almost had a heart attack, I think, when she didn't know what the hell was going on with me, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this show, dude. I've been wanting to have Ray on again for a while now, especially with all the stuff. We get criticized sometimes for talking all this acquisition stuff, and that's kind of like one of the origins of this show, is we just like went live one day for like acquisition talk, and it kind of gave us the idea to do this show where we kind of deep dive more on topics. But it's been in the conversations a lot lately. Before the Embracer Group thing happened this past week, I'd already asked Ray to come on the show, and then we have all this WB Games talk, and this stuff is coming from somewhere. It's not just hearsay. The Ubisoft talk as well. Then we had the Embracer Group thing happen, and Activision Blizzard deal is still showing up. Like, it seems like every day with some kind of new conversation, new topic. And because Ray comes at things from a different angle, because he has a different knowledge base than most of us have, right? He is in that world of investments, and he knows what the shareholders are thinking a little bit more than what a lot of us do, or how investment groups like to operate as well, and that kind of stuff, right? So as far as that goes, there's some insight that he has, and just looks things through a different set of lenses than the average gamer. So anytime we've had discussions with him before, it's like brought new light to things, and and made me think of things differently, right? And I really appreciate that. In fact, the first time we had him on the show was on just one random stream I think we were doing, where we were talking about WB Discovery, and when that whole merger took place, and when that whole thing came in, and he was giving us all these facts in the chat, and I was like, dude, just hop on. Let's get you in on here. And then he came in like, wow, man, and it seems like some of the stuff that you had actually alluded to potentially back then is starting to come to fruition now. And I was DMing with Pong about that. It's like, hey, he was like right about some of this stuff, and it's been a while. I don't know if it's been a year, less than a year, but It's been quite a while since that happened, and now we're in this place now. So it's a great time with everything going on out there. We've got some other big news that happened today as well that we're gonna get into. But I'm super excited to have you on the show, Ray. So thank you for being here. And we kind of hold like PM in the PM. We don't like we want to have like a guest that we really feel like are gonna add something like a different take or different perspective or like some knowledge base and stuff to the show. So you're going to be part of that now. I appreciate you stepping into it.
Well, again, thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate the kind words. I'll try to live up to them.
Yeah. Well, you have every time so far, so.
It helps being psychic, Ray, like you are. So you know exactly what's going to happen in the future. That's why we bring you on, sir. No, this is awesome. What a great week. Look, I've been busy as hell. And of course, I think I say that on nonstop. So I think everybody could just type that in the chat and they would be correct. But I'm still on my like old game kick right now. Look, I played some Loot River because I absolutely love the demo. Loot River lives up to the demo. It is fantastic. It is a roguelite in that old bit style, but it's a lot deeper than a lot of them. It has RPG aspects to it. Again, I'm not going to use the Souls comparison, even though some people like to say it's got Soulsy combat. I don't think it's Soulsy combat at all. I think that you can certainly parry, you can certainly dodge, but I think that's a little bit more hack and slash than a Souls game is. But I'm absolutely loving Loot River. So if you have Game Pass and you have not downloaded it, please try it out. If you don't have Game Pass, I still think it's worth you checking out and seeing if it's something you might be interested in, because it's a very, very well designed game. Really loving it.
Can you explain to me the parry on that? How do you do the parry?
What is it? Is it
B? Is that you just hold down
timed.
B? So you have to let go at the right time, or
no. You can just you can hold it down and just block. But if you time it like a normal, like any other game,
so just like tap B right, when you're about to get hit.
Tap B right is when you get a big hit and it stuns them, and then you can go on the attack. Yeah,
I was holding it down. I was like, this is just a block. I don't understand what's going on. Okay.
No, you got to tap it at the right time. So yeah, do that. Otherwise, I have also, obviously now today, Citizen Sleeper and Trek to Yomi are both dropping the Game Pass. I am highly interested in both of those games. I am extremely disappointed in the reviewers and how they're handling Trek to Yomi. I read through a bunch of those reviews today, and I gotta say, look, you guys aren't as important as you all think you are. I understand it's an opinion. Okay, I get that. You guys don't get that. This is look. When did we lose sight of the fact that you play games to have fun? If the game has everything about it that you love, and your review is celebrating the graphics and it's gorgeous and it's got a decent story to it and it's bringing you back to the old samurai movies and everything about it's polished, all of that is in your review, but you say it's short and the combat is simplistic, and you dock it down to a 7 or a 6 because of those two reasons. Look, man, you've lost the reason why we game. Okay, you've lost the reason why we game. Now, I haven't played it yet, right? But again, from everybody that I'm hearing that I trust, they all love it. And they're saying it's awesome and it's polished and it's everything that we hope a game is for. But are we really to that point where we're going to compare an indie title like Trek to Yomi to more complex systems just because the developer decided to go in a different direction with their combat and then dock it 3 points for that, 4 points in some instances? I can't agree with that. So, but I am looking forward to both Citizen Sleeper and Trek to Yomi. I'm going to be hopping into that, but I popped back in because, of course, the news this week got me start thinking. When Embracer bought Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, those old Deus Ex thoughts came back in my head. So I went all the way back to Deus Ex Human Revolution and started that up again. And my God, if they don't bring Adam Jensen back, Embracer, listen to me. You've been doing awesome out here bringing back old franchises to life. You really have. You guys have been doing amazing stuff. If you do not let Eidos Montreal bring back Adam Jensen and bring back Deus Ex, we got problems, man. We got problems. That is one of the, I don't know why it undersold. I can't go back in time and remember all the reasons why. It got rave reviews. I don't understand why more people didn't latch on to Deus Ex. But let me tell you something. One of the best cyberpunk worlds ever created, and it deserves another chance. And it deserves a chance in current gen style, triple A style, because my God, even the 360 version is still holds up to this day. Yes, it's 30 frames, so not everybody's going to go back to it, but it holds up and it's amazing. So I went back to Deus Ex and, like I said, Loot River and, of course, NBA. Always NBA. I always kick a NBA. I'm doing my domination mode, getting my season levels up, trying to get more cards. So that's my week. But I'm on this old kick, man. I like to play old games. I'm not going to lie. So here I am.
Right on, man.
So, yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. But otherwise, other than that, we got some beautiful people in the chat right now. We really do. Let's run down this list real quick here, Mav, and then I'll let you get to your super chats before we get behind, because I know people are already being generous, and we love you all no matter what, whether you're just lurking, whether you're in here participating. It does not matter to myself and Mav. We love you all for everything that you do, showing up here each and every week. We've got over 50 people already. We had a huge show last week, obviously, with Rand and Steele. It was absolutely amazing. Love seeing you all back here again on Thursday night to spend time with us. Siki, the first one in the chat. Siki, it's always great to see you. Flame, of course, shout out to you, brother. Up in here showing support for Lil Ray Ray. We love you, Flame. You are amazing, of course, from lordsofgaming.net as well. The Fifth Horseman V in the house. Drawn TJ showing up. Always great to have you in here, sir. We got Chris Jones, C Unit. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for joining us tonight. Anthony Chipmunk, shout out to you, man. Who else? Caitlin, beautiful Caitlin. Again, Caitlin, special shout out. Special thanks to Caitlin for doing all the behind the scenes stuff, thumbnails, all that good stuff. She does it all. She's amazing. And she's a TikTok influencer now. So go check out her TikTok because she's the next big thing over there. She's smashing it. Okay. So go check that out. Fuzzy Belvedere, brother. Good to see you, man. We're going to be on more and more shows together, Fuzzy. I'm telling you, man. I keep seeing you. So I can't wait until tomorrow night, and then Saturday night as well. Maddie Byrnes, awesome to see you, man. Thank you for being in here. I know you're listening in the background, even if you are not in the chat, sir. Great to see you. Big Mad Mo is in the house. Great to see you, brother. Adam C., good to see you, sir. Lore Master Jasper, shout out to you, man. Good to see you in here. Who else we got? We got Andrew Cullinane, of course, dropping on through as he does every week. And then one of the best new names in the community. It gets everybody who has to read it, and it's creative, and that's why it stands out. My right nut is itchy. Thank you for dropping in here and checking out PM.
Though. Last week it was left.
It was left, but it gets him he got Wilmy last night when Wilmy had to read it off. It's amazing. Great to see you, sir. Frizzle, good morning to you. Wherever you are coming from, Frizzle, good morning. And thank you for joining us in the morning at your location, obviously. Rick Payne is in the house. Rick, good to see you, brother. General Spartan 27, always showing his face. John Wolf doing good work. Keeping that channel positive, doing huge interviews over there. Go check out John Wolf, doing amazing things as well. John, good to see you. Hey, Fark Q, did I get you? Farquaad. Is it Farquaad?
That's my left nut is itchy, aka my right nut is itchy. It's also Fark Q.
Okay, so I thought maybe they were just both using the same avatar, but okay, all right. Yeah. Shout out to you again, switching up the names, keeping it interesting. Love it. All right, let's go. All right, so Matt, why don't you get down to business with those super chats, brother?
Right on, dude. Yeah, we have a few of them to get through already. I appreciate the support, guys. You all rock. First off, we got Drawn TJ with a $2 super chat. Says, hi, guys. Hi, Drawn TJ. How are you doing? Always dropping the support. Appreciate you, dude. And he follows that up with a $5 super chat. Says, your intro gives me Forza Motorsport and Need for Speed high stakes vibes. It sounds like it could be in the game. Hey, appreciate that, man. I'm kind of picky about my music I use and stuff. And I like the kind of like 80s-esque ramp up vibe, Blade Runner-ish almost, you know, that one that gives me the feels for it. All right. We also got Lil Ray Ray's best friend here, Flame, with a $5 super chat. Again, appreciate you as well, Joe. All the support. He says, howdy, everyone. Just thought I'd drop by to share a secret. Lil Ray Ray hates the equator. Who does that? JK, love y'all. Have a great show. Hey, I don't know what that's all about, but I don't. We got to
He's
talk
not
about
wrong. I lived in Dallas for a year and I ran away. Yeah, if I could, if Canada didn't get in the way, I'd go north.
Yeah, I lived there my whole life, man. It is absolutely crazy, but it is humid at times, like last week,
Yeah.
and hot. And then it rains in the spring a lot and bad storms. But yeah, you get used to it, I guess. We also got Chris Jones. Thank you as always, another huge supporter of the whole community and another writer for lordsofgaming.net. Chris Jones, C Unit, hit us with a $10 super chat. Says, appreciate you guys for being suck positive. I think he means such positive, but I'll read it as he says, for being
We'll go with suck positive.
suck positive
Suck positive.
influences and great friends during the difficult times I've been having the past few weeks. Yeah, I know you've been having some rough days there, Chris. So you guys and my brother Ray are amazing. Yeah, you're amazing too, Chris.
Thank you, Ray.
Again, appreciate you, man. All right, that's it for the super chats, and we got lots of stuff to talk about. And shout out to the chat, a bunch of amazing people here. Appreciate everybody. So let's get into some discussions, Pong.
Let's do it. We got the money man Ray here, right? And we're gonna pick his brain on some of the crazy stuff that's been going on. But we're not just gonna have him talk about the money side of things. We're gonna actually get his opinion on some of this stuff, because a lot, again, he doesn't do a whole lot of shows, so people haven't heard his opinion on from a gamer's perspective too. So let's start with the most recent upfront news, Ray. Let's start there, brother. I want to hear your thoughts on, just as a gamer to start out, just as a gamer, man. How do you feel about what Square Enix did, seemingly cutting loose Crystal Dynamics and Eidos, and letting Embracer Group acquire them for what a lot of people seem to be a paltry $300 million? But I'll get your opinion on that too after the fact. But what do you just think as a gamer, these two companies, in Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, that have made some fantastic games for a long time? Crystal Dynamics, of course, known for Tomb Raider, right? And reviving that entire franchise. And Eidos Montreal just dropped Guardians of the Galaxy last year, which some people had as game of the year. Now, unfortunately, according to Square Enix, didn't sell the way that they wanted them to, didn't perform the way they wanted it to. But nonetheless, those two companies have huge respect among the gamers. Gamers love what they do. In fact, we were championing Microsoft and Xbox to pick them up because we thought it was a perfect fit. But we know the drill. We're going to talk about Activision Blizzard again a little bit later. Their hands are tied. So when it comes to Embracer Group, who is now just a gargantuan company in this industry, when you look at the number of devs and IPs that they do now have underneath their umbrella, what were your first thoughts as a gamer? Ray, when you saw this news, were you excited? Were you disappointed? What was going through your head?
Just as a gamer, and a gamer who's primarily on the Xbox platform as the place that I play, it was mostly neutral from that perspective, just because maybe you can make an argument that Square was annoyed with their investments and how it paid off in their Western studios, and therefore wouldn't be allocating enough capital to fund future development. If you kind of accept that paradigm, you can think Embracer Group might be more willing to supply capital and trust those IPs a little bit more. But I'll shout out, I think it's Daniel Ahmad. He's another Twitter user who his day job is financial analysis for, I think, a sell side shop somewhere out east. But anyway, he was tweeting out some facts and figures. I haven't personally verified them, so I can't speak to the veracity, but if these numbers are true, he was saying like Crystal Dynamics had a profit margin of 3.6%. Well, Eidos Montreal had a 0.65% profit margin in 2021, where Square Enix as a company had a 14.2. That to me says that these were more liabilities than assets. And really what the 300 million was for is the IP at that point. I mean, we can be disappointed in the fact that some of these really cool products aren't catching on with the market at large. And that troubles me as a gamer, because I see the industry chasing trends that I don't want to follow personally. One of them was exactly what Square Enix's management said that they were going to invest in after
Yes.
they got their paycheck.
Oh, have
And
you seen the
so
numbers on that as well? I don't mean to interrupt, but like somebody posted some numbers about NFT purchases compared to just a few months ago, and like how it's dramatically lower now. So
well, yeah, that usually happens with scams. Sorry,
Right.
I don't know if that's a hot take.
Nah,
it was just
no,
interesting.
call
It
it like
came
it
like
is,
the
man.
day after the whole Square Enix deal got made, and then those numbers came out. I'm like, wow, okay, they want to invest that. Anyway, okay, we'll keep moving.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, it's not a technology or tool set or even a product that I think will be fun to incorporate into video gaming. Other people do. That's fine. You can have that opinion. Reasonable minds can differ. That said, as far as Embracer Group taking over these studios, I don't know if I'm even that much more positive on their ability to invest in these. Are you guys familiar with what Embracer Group has been doing? I mean, it sounds like it. They've been conglomerating quite a bit. But,
Yeah, they keep
I mean,
adding studios and studios and studios and IP, right?
And they just acquired more financing as well on top of it.
to
Yeah.
make more transactions is what it sounds like in their pipeline.
Yeah, and they also bought Asmodee and Dark Horse recently, which are printed products, right? So
Right.
comic books and board games. And they spent almost 3 billion euro on that acquisition. So, I mean, it's an order of magnitude above this Western Studios purchase. And that, I think, is going to be more difficult from a management perspective. I just see this company getting huge in a way very quickly that could be detrimental to their ability to effectively manage all of the constituent parts. You do see that often when companies over conglomerate. They have to break themselves apart, or they end up underperforming over the long term, just because you end up with so much middle management that chokes the lifeblood out of the actual
Right.
creative processes. And so candidly, I felt like it was a little bit of a horse apiece, right? Like I wasn't too much happier with the idea that Embracer has them versus what Square would have them, as a person who just wants to play cool games.
Right.
What
Which
would have
we
been
all
your
do.
ideal situation then for those studios? Because I think that Square was ready to move on from them. It's been rumored for a long time. If Embracer didn't get them, do you think that Xbox or Sony would have been a better fit? Or, I mean, still same scenario there?
Well, I don't know. And this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think that Xbox has to chew on the food it's already bitten off at this point a little bit. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage the efforts or the investments or any of the products that they've been putting out recently. Like Xbox has been doing great, but the thing is, they just bit off a monster acquisition in this space with Activision Blizzard. If that gets incorporated, and I mean, we can talk till the cows come home about buying all these different companies, but this is going to be a monumental task to actually integrate effectively, and then to get those teams all working in tandem on good games going forward. And from Sony's perspective, yeah, maybe that would have been a good fit. I don't know, unfortunately, when you have profit margins that low, really what a good answer is. From a capitalist perspective, I would not invest in a firm that gave me 0.65% profit margin. I have better uses of my capital. And unfortunately, you end up in a situation where you can have a really great product that just isn't catching on. And even though you've not really done anything wrong per se, because a profit is still a profit, right? So these companies aren't being severely mismanaged or anything. It's the market saying, we don't need what you're producing. And so you just have to shift gears. Now, that said, I don't know if they make the right kind of game on some of these IPs that they have had. Like you're saying, Bong, like there's a lot of nostalgia around a lot of those games, right, that are wrapped up. Have they had too much pressure to be profitable today? That's the difficulty, and that's the thing I think people discredit when they think about video game development. In finance, we always think about a discounted cash flow. So if you're going to buy anything today, you have to think, what is the sum total of all future period cash flows, and what are they worth today? That's where you're discounting those future cash flows, and then you use interest rates, and there's some complex. I mean, you can overcomplicate it, but ultimately, what it comes down to is you say, if I give you $10 today, you're going to give me $1 every year for the next 20 years. And now, is that $10 today really worth that future 20-year $1 cash flow? I would argue no, but that's because I would value my $10 today higher due to the interest rate. So I'm trying to not get too wonky on it and to go through the mathematics, but ultimately what it comes down to is these companies have very poor cash flows from that perspective. Instead of saying, I'll give you $10 today and you give me guaranteed money into perpetuity, what happens with video games is you spend 5 to 7 to 9, 10 years sometimes throwing money into a pit, hoping a product gets made that you can then spend more money marketing and distributing to maybe get a return, right? So if a game hits and it looks successful and it sells 4 million copies, et cetera, but you've spent more than that on the development cycle, on getting it to market, on distributing it to the people who are buying it, you end up in a situation where it's unlikely that the management of that business will take that same bet again. So when your creative team, your dev team is coming to you and saying, here's the roadmap, here's what we can do, we can produce another game similar to this, but here's the new spin, the financiers are saying, no, it's just not worthwhile.
Right.
Okay. You brought up a couple points there, and I want to hit back on them. And Mav, I want to get you into this too, because we really haven't talked here about Embracer because it just happened this week. We've obviously talked a lot of acquisitions, but Ray, first of all, when you look at Embracer Group, because you obviously have some concerns there about how big they're growing, how quickly they're growing, and how that management is all going to work out, which I think are valid questions at the end of the day. And I'm going to piggyback off that because you also kind of talked about Microsoft as well, but they're kind of doing things a little bit differently when they're making these big giant purchases by kind of leaving the structure in place and just getting the philosophy integrated more so than trying to change everything about that company, right? So for me, when you look at or for you, Ray, when you look at Embracer Group and you see where the industry's headed, right? And you see that content is going to be, it always has been king, but it's even more important now in this world where we're going to a more digital subscription based kind of setup ecosystems, right? And we see a lot of companies trying to do this. Is it possible, Ray, in your opinion, that they're accumulating all of this IP, all of this talent, over 100 studios now, to maybe launch their own subscription service? Or are they potentially looking at this as a flip situation where they get all this IP, all this content, all this talent underneath their umbrella, knowing full well that the industry, as it grows here, as we've seen it been growing, the value just continues to grow, and they're just hoping to flip it at some point to somebody like an Amazon, somebody like an Apple who decides they want to jump into this, right? Is that potential there as well? What do you see as far as what Embracer Group is doing here, considering the industry and where it's going?
So a couple of really great points and kind of questions and contingencies I'd think about as I'm answering through that process. Sure. Number one is, what is the intent? I haven't read much. I've read the financial statements, but I haven't read much on like the published comments by the ownership group at Embracer or the management group over there. It's in Swedish and translated to English, and I forget the gentleman's name, but there's basically management and ownership, or excuse me, and original founders. So first ownership group before the company went public, own close to 45% of the business still. And they have the lion's share of the vote of the equity. And then I think it was about 40% owned by other institutions. So they usually vote with the management. So you have a very core group of motivated people who run the business, who own the business. I don't know that their end goal is to flip the company. I'm not saying it isn't, but I would just say that in these situations, typically when you see this sort of ownership structure and this much of a net worth of a founder tied up in a business, they don't usually like to just sell it. Sure. Usually his payout was taking the company public and selling like that. I think it's 20% share to, or excuse me, 60% share to institutions and private investors. I think that was the cash out. And now I think it's just fun for this person. I think it's one person who runs, I forget the gentleman's name. And then to run the company.
Lars.
Lars, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And then he also onboarded two of the gentlemen over at Saber when they bought that. I think they own around close to 11% of the business now. So I think you have a dedicated, highly talented group of management who want to run a business like this.
Yeah.
The question becomes, have you grown too quickly?
Sure.
And then to the point, why are they doing this? Like what? So they are doing it. What is the intention? I think maybe it is to reach a certain scale quickly enough that you become a cornerstone of an industry, right? So It's kind of like Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo are the big names fighting it out. So they're the three. Right. When you think about soda, it's Coke, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper Snapple. But then these guys want to be like the Red Bull. They want to be in this beverage industry per se, but they want to carve out a niche for themselves. They want to get big enough, they want to hit scale, and they want to do it quickly enough that no one else can beat them to it in the marketplace, which could happen. And you can argue that they might not make it there, and they might already be behind Tencent,
right?
Or even, it's a really dynamic market. And then to your point, could they be doing this to start their own subscription service? That's a good question. I think video games are harder to distribute than people give them credit for. You just look at Stadia and how that didn't catch on. If you think about a company in a position to actually hit a home run with their infrastructure for distributing video games, you'd think it might be Google. But I think they really underappreciated how difficult it is to not fully own the platform, and then to be fighting against entrenched companies that have at minimum 2 decades of industry experience, that have walled gardens around theirs, right? And not every game is in a walled garden, but they have, IPs that sell boxes. And I just think not having that and trying to be a third-party distribution platform is difficult.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Now, let me ask you this final thing, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Mav, and ask you where you think Embracers Group's going. Let me ask you this, because I had this conversation with Chris Jones actually this morning about this, and your thoughts about them solidifying themselves in the industry with these acquisitions as quick as they're doing them is kind of their goal. That's my firm belief. Now, once they get to the point, because they said they're not done, right? And we just talked about, they did take out more financing for future acquisitions, and they've slowly moved. I don't know if you kind of noticed it too, Ray. They've moved from picking up smaller AA teams. Now they're kind of creeping into the AAA teams, right? With Gearbox, Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal. It seems like they have acquired a lot of the AA talent that they want. Now they're going after some bigger kind of fish in this industry. But let's say they get to the point where they are set, where they feel that they're good, right? Do you think then they could partner with somebody or do a merger? So partner with somebody, let's say Xbox, right, to provide the infrastructure for a subscription service, and with Azure and all that kind of stuff, and then have Xbox help build out a subscription service. Obviously some benefits to Microsoft there as well. Or could they merge with somebody like, let's say, another big publisher like an EA, right, or an Ubisoft, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and kind of form this kind of gargantuan at that point power, center of power within the industry, controlling all this IP, all these studios, all this talent? Do you think that's something they could look at too?
Yeah, I mean, that is certainly a potential outcome for them. I don't know the relative valuations off the top of my head. I know EA is floating between 30 and 35 billion, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I don't know Embracers off the top of my head. And then where I was looking at it was in Krona, so I don't know the conversion either. So what I did see on their financial statements, though, is that this company has gone from being profitable last year to not profitable. I mean, they used to make about 300 million krona. Now they're losing 2.6 billion. And a big part of that is a jump in personnel expenses, more than tripled in the current quarter. Or just about tripled, sorry.
They have like 12,000 to 14,000 employees now, something like that.
14,000.
14, yeah.
And they're taking on more and more of those ongoing expenses. So the way the company is structured and owned, they can do this for a while, longer than like an EA that is primarily owned by outside non-management individuals. So I don't know that they would want to do a merger. I think maybe they're trying to build a company that they want to run themselves. That's me totally speculating and putting that on that management group, but it's not inconceivable that they could do that. And then maybe they do want to set up their own sort of special branded co-distribution on subscription, kind of like EA Play. I mean, if you're buying Game Pass Ultimate, right, EA Play is getting a kickback for some of that. And maybe Embracer Group is trying to get to a scale where that they can then sell as a package deal enough of this back catalog on a consistent monthly basis that they can help fund their go forward investments, like you just said, moving into AAA. Because as I look at it, I mean, they're moving into a more difficult to compete in space, the AAA games, because it takes longer to develop, it takes more money, and typically newer IPs that are being developed there, or even old dusted off ones, are difficult unless you've had a track record of recent hits, so.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And I think I read something like they've got 100, and I think, what do they got? Or no, they've got 120. They're planning on releasing something like 90 to 100 games in the next year to 2 years, and then they've got another 120 in development. Like, that pipeline can sustain a subscription service. That's why it clicks in my head, right?
Yeah.
Whether it just makes sense. Like, they're going to have so many studios turning out content that they could actually do something on that scale by themselves. They would just need the infrastructure. Like you said, they don't have necessarily they would have to go out and get the servers. Well, again, who's already doing it? It's Microsoft and Xbox, proven that they can do it and do it at that kind of scale. So partnering with them to get that backing, and then offering it like as a add-on to Game Pass, maybe like something we're going to see Ubisoft do here this year with Ubisoft Plus. It just makes a lot of sense to me that they would maybe move towards that model, because they just have so much content coming out. It's crazy. Mav, as far as Embracer Groups, brother, we have not really talked about this since it happened. Oh, I mean, we did, but here now, you've kind of had the week here. It's kind of settled in as to what's going on. We've had a few more comments about what their plans are. They're saying they are planning on having Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal profitable, or at least, I'm sorry, the deal will cut even in the next 2 years, they believe. Whether or not that's true, but that's what they kind of came out and said. But where do you see Embracer Group going with their growth that we've seen? Again, this happened right on the back of Gearbox being announced, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty crazy, like I said, that they've gone from, again, they were one of my favorite groups already, just because they purchased a lot of these AA groups that I love, because I love AA games, and they said, go do what you're gonna do. They just got Elix 2 to come out, which nobody ever thought Elix would get a second game. So for me, they got Time Splitters coming out. They've already said it's going to be in development. An old IP that people thought would never come back is dead, but it's a beloved, nostalgic franchise, Time Splitters, and here they are saying, no, we're going to make this game.
Yeah.
Actually went out and recruited some of the original Time Splitters people back. So for me, that already made them one of my favorite companies. But now they're moving into this AAA space. What do you think the future? What do you think, looking in the crystal ball, speculation town, as it were, man? Where do you think they're going with this?
Well, one thing I'll say is like it's with Embracer Group, it's hard for any of us to really have an idea, and the reason is because we have no real track record yet, right? Like, how many games have we played that where we see Embracer Group in the beginning of the splash screen? Like, I can't personally think of hardly any off the top of my head. Maybe like one or two.
Because they leave the publishers as is, kind of like what Microsoft does, right? THQ.
They don't put their
Nordic,
name
which
at
is their
all
big
on
one.
the splash screens. Like
I'm trying to think what THQ Nordic's put out recently that would have had Embracer, because THQ Nordic was like the first.
I'm just thinking, you're
don't-
trying to establish
yeah.
yourself as a huge brand and a huge
No.
publisher within the gaming space. It'd be kind of important to make sure it's identified that you're behind a lot of it, right? I know like Tencent doesn't, you know what I mean? You don't see like
Right.
Tencent, like on everything, right? That would kind of suck. But as far as Embracer Group, it's hard for me to know because they own so many different things. I can't even really tell you what I've played that they've made, because a lot of it's like AA, right? And like random developers and random things. So it's hard to have an idea of what their track record is. But I do see from all this news and everything that we've been seeing what the potential of the future may be, right? And if they are going to release all these games, I look at it from the perspective of me as a gamer, that it's a good thing, right? I don't know 100% if it's going to work out for Embracer Group, right? Who knows? Are they going to have enough return on their investment in the short term to be able to sustain this, right? I think long term, it's probably a good bet, right? Because they have so much IP, they have so many studios, and what's one of the number one resources that's hard to obtain right now is talent,
baby.
It's talent, right? And you're getting some of the best talent out there, and they're matching numbers with some of the biggest publishers out there in terms of employees and being able to have creative freedom with all these different IPs that they can utilize. And so I think the potential is bright. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see the AAA stuff. Now, remember, Tomb Raider was the biggest showing, the biggest reveal at that Unreal Engine showcase, right? And that was hyped around a lot. People were really excited about that. That is the biggest thing now that Embracer Group has, is that new Tomb Raider game. That is something they're going to be able to utilize. The other aspect of this is I almost feel like they're investing in so many different things and so many different studios and so many different IPs, is because if you're one of these publishers and you want to make it big, it's almost like it just takes one, right? It takes one game. Look what Fortnite did for Epic, right? Look at Apex Legends, what it's doing for EA, and these other games, right? Like, they got Arc Raiders coming out later this year. It's a free-to-play thing that I know some of us are excited about. It's kind of under the radar right now still, but I think it has some potential. And maybe they're just throwing so much out there and kind of gambling all these different things, because really, if they get it right on just one release, it could make a huge, massive impact for that entire company, right? So that's one other possibility. I think we haven't seen the payoff from them yet because there's been so much investment, and I don't think the releases have matched up to the amount of investment that they've made so far because they've been growing so fast. So as Ray, as you're saying, they lost money, but it's potentially because they're growing faster than being able to get stuff out, right?
Yep.
And they have, with Pong, if they have that 90 games releasing within the next 2 years or whatever, then that's going to have some kind of a huge payoff, because a lot of that investment's already been made, right? So I'm really curious to see how that's going to transform once we see these bigger releases start coming out and Embracer Group become more of a household name. because just 2 years ago, nobody said the name Embracer Group. Like, did the name Embracer Group even exist 100%? Have they transitioned to that name yet? I mean, this is moving so freaking fast for that company. I remember at the Game Awards, we saw like 5 different trailers for like Embracer Group. I was like, wow, that was a really big show for Embracer Group. You know, like whoever thought, you know, like we're all talking about Ubisoft, we're all talking about EA, Take-Two, Xbox, Sony, Nintendo, and then here comes Embracer Group stealing a lot of the spotlight with a lot of their games, and some of them become highly anticipated for us. You know, so they're definitely onto something. I do have some of the same concerns as far as you Ray, with just growing too fast to be able to like make sure. And that's, for me, is not necessarily a worrisome about their investment being returned for them. For me, it's a worrisome about quality control, right? Are you going to be rushing out products? Are you going to give lower budgets to all these different devs? Are because you're cash strapped right now? Are you going to kind of like have to micromanage things a little too much in different situations, and all of that kind of stuff? So that's where like not having an endless cash flow can hurt a company that's growing so fast, I would assume. But I still am excited for the potential of it, because we know what Square is, right? We have a long track record and history of what they do, and what their history is with those IPs especially. And it didn't seem like anything was going to be coming good of some of our most beloved franchises. So even if it's not necessarily what we were expecting or a lot of us wanted, for me right now, it's like an open-minded, like I'm on a wait and see approach with these games. Knowing that they already came out and said, yeah, with the Tomb Raider is going to continue to be made. They mentioned Deus Ex in there and all these other things. The potential is we are going to see some of the stuff that we never would have seen from any other publisher, period. They're kind of different than any other publisher out there, right? So it's really interesting. I'm waiting to see, and I hope for the best. But it's just part of this whole like golden age consolidation thing going on right now. It's just banana stuff that we never would have thought was happening is happening, right? If they do end up having a subscription service at some point, I would think it would be like way later in the future, like after they're way more established. You know what I mean? They would have to kind of cement themselves as like Ubisoft or EA, and make sure that they do have that pipeline of quality titles and have a back catalog that they can go to of recent released games that kind of have their name behind it. Because as still, like, people know Ubisoft, people know Square, people know Take-Two, people know EA, but the household average gamer does not know Embracer, right? So it's going to take some time to establish that and try and come up with a service that'll work for them. But
yeah, I
you
don't
never
even know
know,
if they're
man.
gonna. You don't know, and I don't know if they're even going for the fact that they want Embracer per se to be a household name, right? It's like they are moving. Like I said,
But why not, right? Like, why wouldn't you? Like, at this point, I think it would do good for them as far as like investments and stuff like that, if you really put yourself out there. You know, I
because
don't know.
I think that it's hard to explain, but I see Embracer Group like the EU, right? It's all these
Yeah.
little countries, you know,
Uh-huh.
it's the umbrella is Embracer Group, but it's all these individual companies underneath it, right? And they're all still running themselves basically, right? And I think that that's because they see the value in the names of
Hmm.
of each entity that they're purchasing, right? Gearbox still has a name, right? Gearbox is known. Most gamers know who Gearbox is and
Right.
what they're for, and that's exactly why they left Gearbox. And Gearbox is going to publish themselves, much like Bethesda and ZeniMax and all those guys are publishing themselves. So they're leaving Gearbox. And what do? They picked up Perfect World, which is a lesser
Yeah.
known company, right? You and I know them from back in the 360 days with Two Worlds, a great AA RPG
Co-op
series.
too.
But
Yeah, that was
co-op
awesome.
too, but a lot of people don't because it was a double A, and not a
Mhm.
lot of people played Two Worlds, especially on console. So what do they do with Perfect World? They moved them underneath Gearbox, right? But they kept that Gearbox name synonymous. THQ Nordic is still publishing their stuff, right? Because gamers know THQ Nordic. So I think that that's what they're kind of doing here, is almost keeping everybody kind of. They're just gathering everybody together and saying, okay, everybody's underneath us, and we all, at the top, you're reporting to us at the end of the day, but we all want you to keep your individual styles, your individual names, and that's what we're going to use, is that already kind of built up notoriety that each individual studio has, right? And so I don't know, Mav. I don't know.
I
It's
agree
gonna be
with that. I
interesting.
just want to
Yeah,
see like, so the average gamer can start to get familiar. This is the main publisher behind
right,
it. Like it was like
right.
even like, okay, Bethesda Game Studios. You're still gonna see Xbox Game Studios splash
Sure.
screen
Oh no,
before you see
absolutely.
Bethesda. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I would just like
Yep.
to see, and maybe it's been there. Maybe I haven't seen it, but I did see their logo quite a bit at the Game Awards, right? So
Yep.
maybe they are
Correct.
starting to do that. But I just want to see their name on in the first splash screen on the games. That way I can remember like just, hey, was that an Embracer game, or you know what I mean? Like, because
Yep.
right now you got to Google that shit. like
Well, of
I
course.
gotta Google like, was that an Embracer game? I don't even know. They own so many damn studios and so many IP. Like I don't even remember. Like I don't know who funded that game or who published it. Right. So anyway, that's just a
and,
thought.
and they also kind of talked about too, Mav, like this, we're talking about this long road, and Ray, I'll get your opinion on this too. Like in the interim, like you said, because of their growth, and because obviously you got to spend money to make money at the end of the day. So the numbers, aren't going to reflect what we might be seeing down the road from them right now, because their overhead is so much, right? And they're not, as of right this moment, they picked up a lot of studios who have games that just came out that, much like Xbox did previously, they had games that just came out that were published by other people, so they're not getting any of that return right now. But one thing they did mention, a little bit, I saw in after the acquisition was made, was that they did say, hey, we believe we can become profitable with these studios by doing, and this was on the back of them confirming that obviously Crystal Dynamics was going to continue work on the initiative on Perfect Dark, with the initiative on Perfect Dark. That deal was still in place, but they talked about cutting some more deals, with some of the console makers or whatever the case may be, that could help with that initial upfront money. To me, that speaks to PlayStation Plus and Game Pass, obviously, right? And cutting some deals to bring some of that library into Game Pass now, which would obviously help them out money wise while they wait for a lot of these games to get done and to come out. What do you think, brother? You think that's a possibility as well? Obviously.
Yeah, I think that would be prudent if you've got a back catalog and any sort of external publishing deals have lapsed and they're yours. I would say, yeah, try to monetize that. Maybe you can even work with the teams at Sony and Microsoft, maybe freshen them up a little bit, right, to get the enhanced versions out there, or just anything, so that people are thinking about your IPs again. So you can bridge cash flow until you can get, to your point, products distributed where you handle the distribution, and you're not paying another company to do exactly what you can do in-house,
Right.
because you have the capability. I think Mav made some good points about reaching the scale and being able to effectively manage. I think you should have one name behind this entity that people can look to. But when I'm thinking about it in my head, is that maybe they're being a little shy about that because of the nostalgia-driven nature of the industry. Like, people don't love to see a new logo get slapped on one of their favorite game companies or one of their old games that they love. They like the nostalgia of the whole experience. But to your point, I think they can do that effectively, where they just have the Embracer Group as an umbrella, and then here's the Saber Interactive, or here's what came out of Kokomi, or
Right.
I just think that the messaging has to be right, so that people can get excited about their games generally. But then too, to your point, we don't know what the ultimate strategy is on how they want it, or what they all want to do with these games.
It's
And then they're
interesting.
diversifying into comic books, board
Yep.
games, and
Right.
so they can leverage these IPs across a bunch of different products. But how are they going to bring effective value to you as a consumer? Because I mean, just when I'm thinking about it, I'm not signing up for another streaming service. Like I've got too many. I'm at the hill. Like
Right.
if they pull it into something, if it's a part of a
Right.
PS Plus premium
Right.
extra tier, I don't know how many tiers they're going to go to, but or the Game Pass Ultimate Plus, like maybe, but
Yeah.
I don't know that they can go it alone. And maybe I'm just too much of an eternal pessimist. I get told that a lot, but I did like your take, Mav, on a more optimistic tone for
Yeah.
seeing a lot of good games come out of here.
Yeah, that's the hope.
No, I think that's
mean,
what
that's the
everybody
hope
wants,
for
right?
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And I just think that they've got to have some time. Sorry, Mav, I let you finish.
no,
I just think though that with what you were just talking about, Ray, with them buying Dark Horse and them looking at this is not a single-minded kind of focus strategy they got going on here. They're diversifying across everything. They're trying to get content everywhere, which to me speaks to what we've been talking about here with the entertainment industry as a whole starting to consolidate, because the value of IPs that can cross over from video games to movies to TV to books to comic books, whatever the case may be, or in reverse, those IP as we get here today in 2022 and the future just become more and more and more valuable. And if you control them, you control the money, period, point blank. That's why, WB Discovery, which we'll talk about, does not want to give up the licensing, because again, they know that's where the gold is at. And you see with Embracer, they are expanding out into all these different areas to make sure that they are planting seeds that they could sprout at any time, and they could have the money tree growing, and they could have multiple money trees growing, right? And I think that that's the big thing with Embracer Group that's kind of different from some of the other publishers out there, like an EA that's kind of pretty much restricted to just video games right now. And I think that that's a huge bonus for Embracer Group that they could find that out. Go ahead, Matt. What were you going to finish?
no, I was just saying, yeah, we all hope for the best there. You know what I mean? It's like it's tough to say 100% just because with a new company, you don't have that long track record of being around 20 plus years to have that kind of stability that we all kind of feel comfortable with. You know what I mean? So that's to y'all's point also that the Embracer Group being a new name, not being at the forefront. I think that's obviously why, one aspect. But I think they are starting to show their name more because that, like I said, at the Game Awards and stuff, and if they can establish themselves with that identity, that's gonna, for me, it gives a little bit more confidence behind the whole situation as well, right? And trying to establish the brand as something that's going to last and move forward. It's just for me, it's like a confidence thing, right? And I believe that doing it the way where you have like, okay, their splash screen is just going to be at the front. Then you got the obviously pay homage to all the nostalgia, all these devs and all these other things you've acquired by making sure they're at the forefront with, with all of that. You don't want to just like put like Tomb Raider brought to you by Embracer Group and then like leave everything else out of it. You know what I mean? Like, but I do feel like it's important for the future of that company from a gamer's perspective to feel like, hey, I'm excited because I know the stuff that publisher puts out is quality, right? Like I like certain games from certain like I know that Ubisoft, even though we don't like some of the direction they're going, their games usually have a certain level of quality to them, right? Same thing with Xbox, same thing with PlayStation, same thing with Square. When it's a Japanese RPG coming out from Square, you're like, okay, I know that's going to be one of the better JRPGs out there because that's just like has a track record. And even though they have all these other little random companies all in there, it's like a unifying. And this is not necessarily something for the short term because short term it's not necessarily matter, but in the long term, I think it does have an effect, right? So I think that putting themselves out there will be a good thing to show confidence in their vision for the future of that company. And I think that's going to start happening now with these AAA games and stuff in the announcements at all these award shows and things. But hopeful for sure. Is the investments going to pay off? I think it will, just because of the growth of the industry. They could always do licensing deals themselves if they got in trouble as well. They have so much IP. They could also loan at least. They also talked about doing partnership deals with companies in that statement. Maybe continuing deals like they've done with Crystal Dynamics and Xbox, and other things. So there's so much potential there for different avenues for them to generate money. It's just gonna be interesting to see how successful it is, and when are they gonna stop? That's the other key. If they go out and they buy all the WB uh, games studios, and they also like do some kind of merger with Ubisoft, or who knows, man? Like anything's possible right now. I wouldn't call anything off limits at this point, dude. It's been insane this past 2 years.
It's cool. It's the chess game that we always talk about, and to have a new player like Embracer Group, even though they've been around for a while, but for a group like that to all of a sudden jump into the deep end and be like, look, we know where this industry is going. We see the growth. We want to be a part of that. We are coming in. Like, you know, we all know that you know about Tencent and Sony and Microsoft and the potential of Amazon and all that stuff. But here we are just in the background gobbling up stuff. And then all of a sudden, people start taking notice. And then they go after some bigger fish. And it's like, oh, whoa, okay, what's going on? I love this, having new people in the industry. But there's a lot to be decided. And I think that's the big thing you can take away from our conversation here. There's still a lot of what ifs and unknowns in this group, because what's going to really get interesting is when one of their studios, and it's bound to happen at some point, one of their studios has a big bomb, right? That they're not in the good sense, but in the bad sense, not a home run, but the opposite, a failure, a big failure, right? They spend a lot of money, right? They put a lot of money into this project, and this, and the studio's like, yeah, we got a hit. And then they go out there and the game just unfortunately fails. What does Embracer Group do with that studio? Is it going to be a quick hook, or are they going to say, okay, no problem, we still have faith in you guys, no big deal? That's where I think that we start to learn about Embracer Group, not necessarily from the successes that they will have, and they will have them, but it's going to be in the failures that we learn who Embracer Group is, and what they do down the road. Because again, with that many studios and that much talent, it's going to be real easy for them to say, nope, you ain't making the cut.
Yeah,
we're gonna pull you. We're gonna have you absorbed into one of our other 150 studios, right? It's just gonna be, nope, done. You guys had your chance. Sorry. And I think that that's a big deal, because we've seen that in this industry in the past. Again, we saw EA do this a lot in their history. And so I just think that that's where Embracer Group will make their name, and what people will know them for is when that happens and how they deal with it. So just very interesting times. Let's flip it. Square Enix. Ray, Square Enix. What is going on with Square Enix, brother? Look, trimming the fat. Obviously, we all knew they were unhappy with the Western divisions. It was constant. You talked about the numbers, and that their profit margins weren't necessarily the best. I think Square Enix's profit margins themselves, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, are probably a little higher because of Final Fantasy 14 and the money-making machine it currently is right now. So overall, the rest of their stuff probably isn't up that 14% like they claim it is overall. But what do we see Square Enix now doing? Is Square Enix getting, I know they came out and said blockchain, NFTs. They said the industry's changing. This is going to help us maneuver within this new industry. All these buzzwords that the higher ups now like to use. But at the end of the day, does this tell you that they're looking potentially to be bought? That they're potentially trimming the fat to look a little more attractive to the industry? What do you think, brother? Where do you think Square goes on this?
To answer that last question, I don't think they're trimming the fat to be an acquisition target. Okay. I'm speaking in broad brushes, so I don't mean to apply this generally, but
usually, be broad, brother.
Public companies run by a Japanese management team do not enjoy selling themselves. It's a very, very work-heavy culture over there, especially when you get to management of a business, especially when it's a public company like that. A lot of personal identity gets wrapped up into business, and just generally, a lot of the executives over there are much more reticent to start doing M&A deals just because they can move money, right? Like in America, it's a lot more fast and loose in the capital market. We have a lot more M&A activity, generally speaking. Now, that's not to say that Japanese companies don't buy other companies or invest in other private entities or whatnot, but it's fairly rare for major Japanese public conglomerates to sell themselves or to actively try to market themselves. That said, I think they were, I mean, the compensation and performance bonuses and all that stuff are still tied to the operation of the business, right? And a lot of those management own shares in their own business, so they want it to do well. The overall company had a profit margin around 14.2%, I think last year, according to Daniel Ahmad. And that's decent, but it's not, I mean, that's not lights out in the software world, right? And so I think that is really why they're trimming those Western studios, which, and I mean, I don't know, we can have a differing minds are okay situation where they properly managing those Western studios, were they giving them the time and support? I don't know. I wasn't there. I think you can make a reasonable argument that maybe not that wasn't happening. So it's sort of one of those garbage in, garbage out situations where can you be really upset with the product if you weren't putting the time in at the front end? But that's me casting aspersions, and I don't know, speculation.
Yeah.
That aside,
we're in
did
speculation.
happen that they sold it. What I think is really easy for a company to get addicted to subscription revenue. So if you have revenue that's recurring, the market values that higher than a point of sale. So $1 earned in a subscription service that you can reasonably expect to recur next month will be valued higher than $1 that you just sold for one packaged good. So, I mean, I think I haven't read a lot of what management is saying out of Square, but it from what I've heard, it sounds like they want to move towards that model where they've really seen resurgence with Final Fantasy. I think 14 is the online one now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that one I think has been really big for their company, and with all what they're saying with microtransactions, NFTs, etc., I think they just want quick hits, just easy resellable products, something that they can more readily bank on as recurring revenue instead of just selling one finished product game, which is kind of a bummer because I used to love a lot of their games. But hopefully they still invest in their AAA JRPG experiences that are those single player events and don't overload them with microtransaction sort of stuff. But I could see that very easily happening.
And then I'll ask you again too, Ray, in this scenario, Square, like you said, that there isn't, generally speaking, when you're talking about the Eastern side of things, as much M&A, mergers and acquisitions, as there is over here in the West. But partnerships, mergers, could you see Square absolutely going for like a Bandai Namco or a Capcom in Square? I mean, that would be a powerhouse kind of Japanese, publisher if they did.
Yeah, that's much more common. You're right. So out and out purchasing or selling yourself is rare, but more common. What they will do is conglomerate. So business like Square Enix itself is a conglomeration. And I mean, you look at Sega and they merged with Sammy. And I mean, I don't even think they make video games anymore, but Konami at one point did. And their business is, I think, gyms and hotels and stuff.
They're getting back into gaming supposedly, so we'll see.
Yeah, Bandai Namco, same scenariio, right? Arcades.
A lot of these businesses are antithetical to the way that we were just talking about it, right? Embracer gets really big, but a lot of that, they're much more comfortable having what's called like a conglomerate discount. Oftentimes when a business gets so big, so many parts, like Dow DuPont, when they merged, they had a conglomerate discount. The market was undervaluing the constituent parts because it's so hard to manage a business that big. And in the Japanese equity markets, it's just much more accepted, I feel like. So yeah, that could happen. Personally, I own shares in Sega, so they could merge with them. That'd be nice.
Gotta love that. Yes. Let's get the greed going here. Yeah, thank you, Fifth Horseman. Pachinko. I was thinking of Plinko from freaking Price is Right, for God's sakes. Okay, old brain again, not working. Math. Square is now kind of trim. They're looking fit right now, right? They got rid of the studios they hate. That they didn't seem to know how to handle. Again, I've always said that Western marketing for Western style games is a lot different than the Eastern style games. And I don't think Square ever figured out how to really market and promote those Western type games from those devs anyways. But now they've got rid of them, right? They're looking healthier. What do you think Square does at this point? Is it locked into place that Sony takes care, buys them up, or are we talking about something different here?
I'm just so excited about their NFT blockchain future. I can't contain myself. I mean, the whole $300 million that they saved off of this deal, investing
what
into
did Caitlin
NFT
put in those cookies
and blockchains is like just what I hoped for to hear from one of my oldest favorite publishers back in the day growing up with Final Fantasy. That's the future that I think we've all envisioned for them. No, for real though, man, I don't know. It was interesting. I've heard people say, like, is that just like wordage that they put out there for investors to get them excited, and they just have no clue exactly what they even potentially would do with that? I think maybe you were saying that, Pong, because it sounds good. Hey, we're gonna invest more in blockchain. Yeah, cool. What does that mean?
Go after that big NFT money. Yeah.
Hey, the meta's here now at Square.
Gonna have a Final Fantasy metaverse. Let's go.
We've got the #1 meta scientist on board now, and he's gonna send us into the future of gaming. No, come on. All right, like what is actually taking place? I've seen a lot of people speculate, because speculating is fun, that this could be them trimming the fat for a Sony acquisition, right? Where Sony is the one that actually, their partnership gets stronger and they get folded into the studios there and become a huge aspect, kind of similar to something that they did with Bungie, I guess, But I don't know, man. Like, Ray kind of has my mind shaken on that aspect, just thinking like, because Sony is a Japanese entity, would that help that potentially, or like, is that not matter?
It would certainly be easier, I think, to negotiate, culturally speaking. But I don't think it makes it significantly more likely. I don't.
Right.
It's hard to say. You from pure speculation, I would bet no, if I had money to put down on it, that they wouldn't get bought out by Sony in the next decade. But I've been wrong before.
It's I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, I could see like several different things happening here. I mean, I think the most likely scenario is we just see Square Enix continue to make Japanese games, and what I would hope comes from this is them investing in what they do well, is invest in those Japanese games, those RPGs and franchises that we know and love from that side, and put more behind that and bring them to more platforms and bring them to more places and grow the audience there. I think there's a huge potential for that they've been missing out on. I mean, we see that Final Fantasy again is going to be exclusive on PlayStation, right? We see that
100%. I think it will be.
Yeah, it's what it seems like, at least timed, right? Final Fantasy VII Remake still hasn't hit on other platforms. We've seen Kingdom Hearts release first on platforms. We see lot that across the board from Square and their relationship with Sony. Now they have a strong connection there, but I think as Xbox and as more devices and games become playable in more places, as technology is improving and this whole cloud thing keeps evolving over the next decade, I think you're going to see less of that. And Square could be the primary source of the great classic RPGs across all those platforms. And that would be my hope for them, because they're doing some things right. Like, we're getting things like Octopath Traveler, Triangle Strategy, was it Diofield Chronicles? Is that right, Pong?
Diofield,
some really cool stuff coming out of Square that they didn't used to do. They kind of got away from that for a long time. So they're starting to get back into that. So I can't just completely rip on them, right? But I can say they need to make sure that you're looking at the whole perspective of what the potential for your products are, and if necessarily the marketing deals that you're traditionally been used to doing is going to be the right thing for the products in the future, right? So I would hope to see more platforms get access to all of these games, and less timed exclusivity deals, less exclusive to platform deals, because I think it's going to be the best thing for Square, and I'm hoping that's something that they're looking forward to and looking to potentially in the future with kind of the maybe the new direction. Because if you're going NFT and blockchain and all that other shit, it doesn't matter if you're only selling it on one platform. Like
Right.
that would
Right.
completely be the opposite. Like, why would you want to do that? That doesn't make sense, you know. So I think that accessibility is going to be the number one aspect that we see in all of gaming kind of be increased, and I think Square is going to be behind that. But will they get bought out? I don't know, man. Maybe this was a way to prevent that. Maybe this was a way for them to shed some of the weight that they felt like they didn't know how to manage, so that way they can be more streamlined and figure out how to manage themselves better. So I don't think we any of us 100% know all the deals that may go on behind the scenes, or the thinking or the chess moves that are at play
What do
here.
you mean? We got the crystal ball, man. We're in speculation town. We know everything, brother. Your nose has been smelling stuff.
Well,
for a long
my
time
nose,
now.
like, man, my nose got started smelling stuff at the right time, right? We'll say that. But like, as far as this stuff goes, man, like it's really hard to say, because
No.
we can guess, we speculate, and we've been right on some things for sure.
Yeah.
Right. We've
for
definitely
sure.
hit the nail on the head on some things. But in educated guesses, you know, based on looking at everything out there. But as far as Square, it's one of them I just can't 100% put a finger on. I think it's a lot of people's wishful thinking that Square would get
Of course it
acquired by
is.
Sony, right? Especially PlayStation fans. For me, that wouldn't bother me whatsoever, because I think Sony would do right by the brands and the franchises,
Right.
and that I know that we would have those games playable on PlayStation consoles for the long haul at that point. So I
Right.
would be happy either way. But I don't know if they're going to get acquired, or if they're just going to keep doing the same old Square thing. This was a surprising move to embrace your group, though. Like
It was.
that one just caught us all off guard. To see that in the dollar amount, which
Yes.
turns out later when you see like the numbers Ray's thrown out there, is not as surprising. But when you see everything that they got for that dollar amount compared to like what some other franchises and studios are getting bought for like $1 billion plus, like holy crap, how did they pull that off? It's like one of the greatest coups in gaming, and I think that that move alone could have the biggest return on investment out of any of the other ones that they've made, just simply because I do think Ray was right about the mismanagement. Or I know you didn't say 100%. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but
It's certainly a narrative that, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not implausible.
like Square's been known for this, and coming out, oh, we're disappointed in the sales of this game from this studio, like 2 months after the game was released. Like, it's just kind of bullshit, honestly, to consistently do that over and over and over again, and then even have kind of comments out there a little bit about we don't like it. Just I don't feel like they knew, like Pong said, how to handle it properly. That big budget Western developed game, and I feel like they were using it for cash flow reasons, and it wasn't paying off as much as they hoped, and now they're in a break-even situation. They didn't want to fund Crystal Dynamics' next game. They lend them to Xbox, which was crazy. We saw this potentially happening. We thought it was maybe going to be Xbox because of that, but once they leased like Crystal Dynamics to Xbox to develop Perfect Dark, is kind of the writing was on the wall for me, at least from Square's perspective. But yeah, man, I have hope for Square. I think if they could get back on track to being who, we loved back in like the 90s and, the early 2000s and stuff, that'd be great.
The problem is, it sounds like they're going to start chasing trends. So we'll see what kind of balance they have.
I hope
'cause
that's
if
just
they're
a bullshit
not-
statement that just doesn't mean anything.
So do I. Like I said, if they're not acquired, or if they don't merge with somebody, right, and they are dependent on their own, I am afraid, like Ray said, they are going to start chasing the dragon a little bit here. And that is not what they do well. They have things that they do very well that they have cultivated
Yeah.
over decades. And to start chasing something brand new, I'm not going to say 100% failure. Again, I don't ever deal in absolutes, but I'm just saying that is a very high risk road to go down with your company who is known for some very specific IP and very specific types of IP to try to go chase something completely new. Look, like I said, the balance has to be there. If they flip flop all their business models over and try going after subscription, nonstop subscription models or free to play monetized stuff or this NFT stuff, if they try to do that all in one shot, they're going to be in trouble, I think, personally. So again, they've got something good. Final Fantasy 14, highly successful. We'll see how long they can keep that going for. That game was dead in the water. They brought it back to life. I give them all the credit in the world. It is now pulling people away from World of Warcraft. So they've got that great stream of income coming in. But I'd like to see the margins specifically on each individual game, because I want to see what the margins are in Final Fantasy games and how close they are to breaking even, because we know they put a lot of resources into Final Fantasy standalone games, single player games, and I just don't know if their margins are that healthy on that side. So really, they got to decide which way they're going to go here. But again, it's always fun to talk about this stuff. We love this stuff in Speculation Town. It's just great to see the movement. Again, the industry is healthy as it ever has been. Look, we've had some great people jump in here. Game Positive, great to see you. The Truth Teller showing up in here. We've got the Indie Gamer dropping on by. Great to see you, brother. Shout out to Indie Gamer. Back in the saddle again. Go check out his channel. Indie Gamer is absolutely freaking incredible, especially for that indie game scene, man. No one does it better than him, so go check him out. Jay Rembert, always good to see you dropping in here as well. Who else did I see drop in here? Eternal Umbra, of course, showing his face. Shout out to Umbra, great member of this community, does some great work. Boogeyman, listen, Boogeyman just posted on Twitter today, man. He's got to have knee surgery. He's out of work until the beginning of June at least. Dude. So take care of yourself. He said in the chat earlier that he's going to be catching up on his backlog. That is one good thing. Yeah. But man, I know how bad that sucks. So just take care of yourself, brother. Get back healthy. Get that knee in shape so you can get back to everyday life. But enjoy the time off as well. Brother Mike out here. Brother Mike, original NLG. Showing up in the building. Thank you, sir, for dropping in. I see you've been camping a lot with the Boy Scouts. That's right. You've been out there, and you are now fit and in shape, climbing walls. Everything that you couldn't do before, man. Shout out to you, man. It's never too late to get healthy. Shout out to you, man.
Yeah.
It's
you see
awesome
Mike melt away almost like on camera every week, on NLG.
Exactly. Crazy the work he's been putting in, and just fantastic, man. Mr. Xbot showing up in the house. Thank you, Mr. Xbot, for dropping on in here. Love you all. Again, if I missed any of you, I apologize. Try to get everybody new that was just showing up here. Just in MK114. Good. Justin. Not Justin MK114. Great to see you for dropping in here as well. Again, if I missed anybody, I do apologize. I think Soul Khan was in here too. I think I saw, Soul Khan dropped in here as well. Always fantastic to have you here. Poochie, good to see you too. Fantastic. We love you all. Thank you all for being here tonight. So, we just knocked the Embracer Group Square Enix process out of the park here.
We spent an hour and 36 minutes on that. Oh my God.
It just flies by. It just flies by.
How much time you got, Ray? Holy shit.
Ray, what kind of time frame are you on, sir?
Probably 8:39.
Okay, cool.
Right on.
So we got time. So, Mal, where do you want to go next? You want to go back to WB Discovery real quick and have Ray do the breakdown?
Yeah, let's dive into some WB Discovery here, because this origin of this discussion happened from our first time really talking to Ray. And it was maybe it was Activision Blizzard or Bethesda ZeniMax. I can't remember, but I know we had you on with the WB Discovery deal, and you had some really interesting.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, you had some really interesting thoughts about WB Discovery and what could be behind it all, and you kind of explained what was going on behind the scenes, with some of that stuff, and we didn't really see it. And you said maybe they could be moving on from those games, from the gaming division at some point. Maybe that wasn't in their plans. And now we're kind of starting to see rumblings come out, that they may be wanting to individually sell some of these game studios, right? That they may not be super interested in the gaming space. I did notice also when they made their official announcement of that the deal was finalized and they reached out to the world and said, "Hey, we are now WB Discovery, and this is final." They didn't mention gaming at all in that statement. They mentioned becoming a big streaming entity and with the DC licensing and they talked about having a big universe with DC and trying to compete against other big streaming giants like Disney and Netflix and all of this stuff, but gaming wasn't really talked about at all. And after that, I saw that statement. I was like, I kind of sent a DM to our chat for our group on like Xbox Ultimate and stuff. I was like, hey, like they didn't even mention gaming here, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't start hearing something soon. And what do you know? Like 2 weeks later, you have some insiders out there that are in the space in the know, saying, I can't really put this in the article yet, but we're starting to hear things about WB Discovery not really being interested in gaming and maybe moving on from the gaming side and potentially selling their studios off. So seems like, Ray, you were kind of one of the first ones to kind of potentially foresee this. I was kind of interested, in that, but like, what do you foresee for those studios now? What's the potential there?
It's a good question. What, and a lot of it hinges on what WB feels comfortable actually selling. To your point, and I always agree with this analysis. You listen to what management is saying in the press releases.
Yeah.
They're not talking about a portion of their business at all, especially when they've just merged and they're super excited about it. It's probably not that high on their list of priorities. Mm-hmm. Because they will bring that to the market. They will talk about it. They will set the strategy for the overall business. Sometimes you get a hit product out of nowhere, you didn't expect it, and it goes, and you hadn't been talking about it, and now it's a new focus of your business. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Yeah. What I'm saying is that when you have these two companies who've just come together, the only thing that they were talking about is we want to be one of the big three players in streaming media: Disney, Netflix, HBO. That should be the three people you think about.
Right.
And that's a difficult business already. That's capital intensive as well. You have to fund shows. I don't know. They throw around silly numbers that Game of Thrones was costing like 16 million, 20 million an episode or something like that. I mean, these are similar products. Entertainment products take a long time to develop, and then you release them. You're not sure if they're going to hit. The one flip side to that pipeline is they have the HBO Max subscription revenue coming in monthly. And I think Discovery had their own subscription service. I'm not 100% sure how many subscribers or what kind of revenue that does, but that subsidizes your production, right? They don't have that, and they don't really have a space to distribute video games in the same way, because you have, proprietary boxes. And then, Steam is the Goliath in PC gaming, right? So you can't really, without a huge capital investment, set up your own distribution network in the video game space. They're not set up to do that. They don't have the technology pipeline to do that, like Microsoft or Google, Amazon, or even to a lesser extent Sony with their deal with Azure have. I think what they want to do, if I own WB Discovery, I want to sell these studios for a lot of money up front with zero IP attached and license the IP back. I don't know that they will get a lot of bids for that type of offering. I wouldn't bid on it from, if you're running Embracer Group or Tencent, Sony, Microsoft, any of them. Like, why would you buy the studio, which is the cash spend, pay additional money to license the IP back from the company you just purchased, and then hope that the game hits? It's just not a smart investment. So it kind of puts you in a rock and a hard place. So I think you're going to have a lot of wrangling around what happens with the IP. If a sale is actually going to get done, you could see some significant lockup of IP over a couple, years for a video game space. You could see, I don't know, depends on how much somebody wants to pay for it, but you could see a sale into perpetuity. That has happened across media properties before. Spider-Man's a big one, but companies have really started to go away from that because, as we've talked about, it's all about the subscription revenue. So if you can license that IP, you'd much rather do it. I think what we might end up seeing is the studios focused on licensed content might shut down, and they might be able to sell standalone classic video game content. I mean, the one that comes to mind is NetherRealm. Is the biggest, crown jewel in that group of developers. It'll be interesting. It'll be fascinating to see, because I tried to look into the numbers. Because AT&T was so big, they didn't have to disclose what was going on in their video game business. They barely talked about it. This deal finalized after the most recent quarter, so Discovery didn't have to disclose any of the financial information on their most recent quarterly filing with the SEC about the performance of WB. So it's a little bit of a black box right now. So you have some people at the company, the newly merged company, who have all the details, who are probably talking to investment bankers, probably trying to shop this asset as a group, because it's much easier to sell one unit, all at once than it is to piecemeal it. It's a lot more work for the lawyers and accountants. So you don't want to usually piecemeal out your assets like that. You'd like to sell it lump sum. If I had to bet, I could see something happening this September to November timeframe.
November?
I mean, it could happen earlier, but if I had to bet, that's where I would place, my chips.
And you think it's easier to sell all as one, like WB Games, like off to maybe a major publisher, as opposed to selling like NetherRealm, it's selling Rocksteady, individually? You think?
Yes, it would be. I think it would. They would rather do it that way, because you're only negotiating once. You only pay the lawyers one time. You only pay the investment bankers one. So you don't have to do it for every individual asset. That said, I could see studios that have traditionally only done licensed, internal WB content shutting down, or the employees moving over to the standalone studios, and then those studios being shopped all as one. So anything that has their own kind of video game centric IP that isn't a Warner Brothers, licensing issue. And then you also come to questions on how aggressive is WB Discovery going to be about keeping the movie and television rights on those IPs, right? For like the Mortal Kombat one. Not that that's produced significant Oscar-winning movies in the past.
Yeah, but it still generates some pretty.
It's part of the question, right?
Like I think like the numbers came out and that movie did fairly well, the last one.
Yeah. So I don't think they want to license that back from whomever they sell their studio to.
Right. And that's one thing that's be interesting, because like, by the way, everybody, Pong lost power. He's on his way back. He has to reboot. But NetherRealm's always been attached to Mortal Kombat, right? So does that devalue that? Is it worth, for like something like Mortal Kombat? Is it worth it for WB Games, but WB Discovery to keep that license just for the movies, when that would devalue the selling price of NetherRealm and the whole entity? Because but they're not going to sell DC, right? They're not. It ain't no way in hell, right? But you have studios that are synonymous with making DC games, like Rocksteady, right? Now, I think any of us could say like Rocksteady could go to any publisher and make any other licensed game or any game, and they were very talented. And I think most publishers would be very happy to bring Rocksteady in, period, regardless if they come with the IP. But they're not going to be anywhere near as worth as what they would without Batman, in the whole DC license, just because that's what they're known for, so you hold, so here's what I see. And I want to know what you think about this. Like my thinking is they're potentially going to sell off NetherRealm with Mortal Kombat. Rocksteady, was it Traveler's Tales? That's the one that they own, correct? I believe so. Pong?
You are probably right.
What? Rocksteady owns Traveler
No,
Tales?
no,
T-
WB. They own Traveler's Tales, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So Traveler's Tales. And then you have what, WB Montreal, and who am I missing from the major?
Monolith.
Monolith, right? That's the other like big one, right? So I would foresee those studios all maintaining, right, and being sold off potentially as one entity, like you say, and with Mortal Kombat along, because you get at least that one IP out of it all, right? There's no Lord. I see a lot of people talk about Lord of the Rings IP out there and stuff. They don't own that, right? They don't own. They do own DC, right? They do own the DC IP, but
And it's actually in NetherRealm's contract that the Mortal Kombat IP goes wherever they go. That's actually part of their contract.
Okay. So
yep.
What I'm wondering now is if that's the package deal.
You can break those contracts pretty easily after you own the company.
Could you?
It's a big dick move to do, but you can do it by dissolving the company that you own and starting a new entity and transferring the IP.
Hey, don't give them any ideas, Ray.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, no, they're lawyers.
I know they would know that. I know.
I'm just curious because like if WB Discovery isn't interested in even being in the game space anymore, would they be comfortable burning those bridges?
No. I don't think that.
Okay. So Ed Boon gets to maintain Mortal Kombat. You know, he goes along for the ride along with all those other studios and stuff. Now, who's it feasible in November, potentially, if something like this gets announced? That's not that very far away. What are the target companies that could potentially make a play, you know, for this entity? It seems like Xbox right now is tied up with Activision Blizzard, right?
Yeah.
And whereas before I was thinking, would that really like hold them back from making a move like that? And after we see what happened with Crystal Dynamics, my answer to that now is probably yes. Because if they're not willing to plunge $300 for Tomb Raider and Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, then they're probably weren't able to make the move that they wanted, right? So now I'm thinking that Xbox may be off the table unless magically that deal goes through. Pong is thinking, hey, screw this whole scenario. You just need to fight it because you can't let this go to waste. And screw that even more. Go ahead and just buy WB Discovery, period, and get into the full entertainment space. So Pong's going big or going home. But now
the chips in the table.
So then I'm looking, okay, like, is Sony like looking at potentially doing something like this? Because that would be, I mean, savage if they got Mortal Kombat and also have exclusivity potentially on the new Street Fighter game as well. Where do you see potentially these things moving to if that happens?
I run a company and I have a movie studio and I can buy IP that has proven, I mean, they've sold movies against it before, and I run a video game company. I don't know. The most natural fit with a potential handcuffed, competitor might be a good place to move. So if I'm running Sony, I'm calling up WB Discovery and saying, hey, how much do you think these things are worth?
Yeah.
Now, do they ever come to a transaction? I don't know. Who says? But I would certainly be tasking my finance department with figuring out what this collection of studios and potential IPs, and depending on, the discussions with Warner Brothers, if we got this, then what would it be worth? If we got this other thing, or if we only got limited to this, you would have to do all these different scenarios and value those assets. And then, I would put in a bid for sure.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking too. And then if that were to happen, it'd be very interesting in the gaming space, because then you're having something that a lot of Xbox gamers, right, would rather have said that, we got all those WB studios and stuff other than Activision Blizzard, right? Activision Blizzard cost $70 billion. I think obviously that's going to have a much bigger effect on the industry and on Microsoft than even, those other studios would for Sony. But it's just, man, it seems almost too good to be true that that's just up for the taking, but it seems like it is. now, and it seems like the highest bidder is probably going to come out to some awesome stuff. Now, are those studios worth the investment without DC? Like, do you think so, or do you think some of them maybe get shuttered?
Well, that's where it gets a little sticky too, because you're also dealing with a movie studio competitor, right? So
Right.
I'm not saying that can't happen, that deal wouldn't happen, but so you buy Avalanche, or I think it's Avalanche, right? They're
Yes,
making
they
the
have
Harry
Avalanche
Potter
as
one,
well,
and then
yeah.
you're licensing back from a company that has the movie rights, and it might get a little fraught. But I just think it's a natural fit where you try your hardest to work through those potential hangups, right? And then to your point, yeah, I think Microsoft probably looked at spending 300 million on studios that were not overly profitable, who have a great IP backlog, but I mean, Xbox already has a great IP backlog, and they're struggling to develop games against that already. So
Yeah.
I think they think about it and think, is a $300 million IP pool that adds, I'm not saying no value, but marginal value to our product pipeline, worth the potential risk of us looking overly aggressive while we're under review for our competition practice right now.
Too
Now,
small
again,
of potatoes to take a risk, right? Potentially.
exactly.
Right.
That's not me trying to doom and gloom or say anything like that, but
Mhm.
this is a big enough acquisition that either the DOJ or the FTC, and I think it was the FTC who exercised jurisdiction, is going to review it.
Right.
And so it doesn't make sense. And now I would almost argue, if I'm at Microsoft, I'd say it's probably not worth it for us to bid on the WB studios either at this point.
Yeah. Which is interesting. Now, Pong, I see you shaking your head, man. Now, Pong's saying go big and just get WB Discovery, and Microsoft take the plunge into the whole entertainment space, right? It makes sense for the long-term plans, potentially for Microsoft and becoming a streaming giant, also with cloud gaming and all this stuff, subscriptions model. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, video games overlap with their core competency in technology and software distribution so much better than I think movies distribution and movie production does. Now, I'm not disagreeing with you that there aren't synergies across the video game and movie entertainment industries. There are. I mean, you can just look at Sony. But I don't know that Microsoft wants. If I'm in the room, I would argue against it. I'm not saying that you couldn't do it or it couldn't be successful, but I would say, guys, we got way better stuff to spend our money on. And that's just an opinion, right?
Yeah, right. That's what all this stuff is. That's why it's fun. It's playing armchair CEO, right? None of us
I
run.
mean, I was just saying, like, your opinion is not invalid, like by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
It would just
and neither is yours, obviously. Again, they already tried it. They tried it last gen, right? That they were going to move into that space. They had an actual, Xbox movie studios like ready to rock and roll, right? They were starting that road when Donnie D was in charge.
But
so
to your point, a turnkey solution like this would be way more advantageous.
Right, they have all the experience. They don't have to go hire people. They just bring them all in, and let them continue to run the way they run, and they just expand their portfolio is all they're doing at that point. And then, like I said, you control your own destiny. Nobody, like if you want to make a Halo movie, you want to make Halo TV show, you don't have to go anywhere else. It's all in-house. Everything is yours, right? So that's my whole point. And I think that the entertainment industry as a whole, again, is going to be consolidating with video games included. And I think that we're going to see some of that. We see it in Netflix, right? Netflix is starting up game studios, right? Not AAA, not AA, they're smaller games, but they are jumping into that space. So I think that's going to happen more and more. And I would just, from my point of view, and again, this is why I don't run billion-trillion-dollar companies, because I'm not that guy. But I'm saying if I'm going to do this, and WB Discovery, just like Activision Blizzard, is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that comes along, I think you go all in, because the way the law is written right now, the FTC can cry, scream, do whatever they need to do, but at the end of the day, I take them all the way to court, and I think they lose. And I think that they're not close to monopoly. Nobody is close to a monopoly in this industry, in this space. And with WB Discovery, they'd be moving in a totally different space, because the game division compared to the movies and TV side of thing, entertainment, is so small. And then one of their main competitors, Sony, already has a movie and TV studio. I don't think there's any way the FTC could say, no, that's too aggressive. You can't go do that. I just don't see it. And again, this is why I'm not getting paid millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, I just fight it. All chips in. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. All bets are off. So that's where I go. That's my only point. So, but I think the WB Discovery thing is interesting, and it will be. I agree with you, Ray, when it comes to Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, that they showed right there. We had all been speculating that they were going to be awfully quiet. I said that the shark is busy with a whale. The other sharks are going to be out there feeding right now. The great white shark being Microsoft Xbox. And I think that we were all speculating whether or not they would do any other moves during this time frame. And I think that showed right there that no, they're not going to. They're going to get this deal through, this deal done. I still think they're pushing to get it done by the end of the year. To try to be able to announce that for holidays. I think it just makes total sense. So I don't think they're going to cause any waves. I think they're going to we're just focused on this deal. Once this deal's through, we'll start up again. We'll start looking at other places. But right now, we're not going to touch anything else. We're just not going to draw any more attention to ourselves. Look, the FTC right now is on a mission. Okay, it's a wrong mission, based according to how the laws are currently written. It just came out today that they're going to look at the Bungie deal with Sony. They're going to investigate that one.
They have to invest. I mean, they investigate all deals above a certain threshold.
But they don't.
But when you say
they don't have to announce it, right? Right, they ask for docs, but they don't really announce those. Like, because a lot of deals go through and they just don't make an opinion, right? Because they have the ability just to let things go and let them go through, and then that's it, right? Because they have a time frame. So they can
make a public comment on it, but the company hears about it. They get a phone call.
Yeah, of course. Their attorneys are the first to know, right?
So who makes the comment from the FTC? Is it like, oh, we're going to investigate this, or is it like just a journalist kind of asking questions to them?
It can be as easy as that. I don't know the situation. I'm unfamiliar with this quote, so I don't want to put it in anyone's mouth. Or it can be the head of the department, or what I've seen a lot of is elected representatives saber rattling about, here's a terrible thing companies are doing, or blah 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 blah.
I'm just wondering if some of it may be a phone call from a specific journalist or something.
Right.
Like, hey, do you have any comments regarding blah blah blah? Yeah, we're going to look into that. You know what I mean? And then, but here comes an article.
Or they just say our standard review process is to review anything above against a very bureaucratic answer, and then the headline is FTC investigates.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I just think that they're overstepping their bounds right now. They're making a statement. So for me, that's where I'm at with the FTC. And I know, Ray, you're going to be neutral about that stuff, but I'm just saying for me, it's way overstepping. They're making political statements and they're not doing it according to how the rules are written right now. So again, you want to change them, go change them. You got to do it the right way, not make your own just because you don't like things. Right. So,
they're actually legally empowered to make a lot of this, by them, determination by the.
Yeah.
So when you take a step back, like the administration is going to nominate people to run this unit, the FTC, right? Because it's an agency of the federal government. And so those individuals will set a policy directive for the operation of that agency under the purview of the laws that enacted the agency. And then other future legislation that has been enacted that is under their jurisdiction. From the FTC's perspective, the antitrust laws that everybody throws around, right? The Sherman Act and Clayton Act, fall into that, and then all of the sort of precedent-setting court decisions that have happened since those acts were written. In America, we have shifted focus less to enforcement action against a business just because it is conglomerating, just because it's getting bigger, and we've focused very narrowly, but very intently on what is the impact to the consumer market. Right. So is this merger going to have a negative impact on the consumer? If yes, then they get very, the hackles go up, they get very in-depth, they might even sue to stop the merger. Or are these businesses colluding and or internally just setting up anti-competitive practices? I see that thrown around on Twitter a lot. People are, this is so anti-consumer or anti-competitive. When you think back to Microsoft, when they got in trouble. Theirs was truly anti-competitive. We are going to give away a web browser for free with every copy of our software, which is the only operating system that our competitor can operate on. And people are going to use ours because it is free, and theirs costs money, even though it's better. It's just, and we can run at a loss, developing Internet Explorer into perpetuity to ensure that we control that market, the access point to the consumer internet. And that was bad. Like that patently, like that is when a company has gained too much market power. There's been a concentration of power, and they've used it to vertically integrate their products. And so they got in trouble. They had to unbundle their software. That's why you have to pay for Microsoft Office nowadays. This acquisition that they're doing, I agree. I do not see this as an issue from a competition or a monopolistic standpoint. But my opinion isn't the one that matters. It's agents at the FTC who are going to determine that. I would be amazed if they came to a different one and they sued to stop this. Amazed. That doesn't mean it can't happen. I've been amazed about a lot of things in my life. But to your point, is it a little annoying when comments are just being thrown around without a basis of fact? I get annoyed with that too. So I don't know. Maybe I'm going on a tangent there.
No, that's fine. We go on plenty of tangents here. That's not a problem whatsoever. And the FTC just did try to stop Amazon from getting MGM, and guess what? They lost. So
they sued to stop that one?
Yeah, they did.
Oh.
Yep. So Amazon said, yeah, go ahead. Come on. After you guys allowed Disney and Fox.
Thing, right? I mean, this is a technology company. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay.
Right.
But Amazon is not traditionally in entertainment. And I mean, Microsoft does compete in video games, but they're not the only competitor in entertainment. Like that's the market you got to be thinking about.
Right. Exactly. No, it's interesting, and we hear all this stuff coming out, and there's, certain people who seem to want this thing to fail, Jason Schreier being one of them. I'm probably one of the few people left not blocked by him, but then he walked back his comments today, even so, after he made his brazen statements out there, and Hogue Law had to correct him. Shout out to Hogue Law, giving the good information and explaining it to us common folk in a way that we can all understand it. And he did some more of that today as well, or the other day, yesterday it was, over the New York City thing, which was actually not the New York City per se, and wasn't such a big deal. But Jason Schreier did walk back his comments today and said that he does believe this deal does go through. So, again, sentiment being what it is, Ray, throughout this whole process, as we've watched the Activision Blizzard deal kind of happen in front of us, and we're all learning stuff, right? This is huge. Like for gamers, like this is big because we're all kind of getting new information, kind of figure out how these actual and this is the biggest one in history for video games, actually come together. And on top of that, we get to see how this whole process works in the approval, go through the investors, 98% of them voted yes, all this stuff that we're seeing. Ray, as you watch this whole thing kind of unfold here, and as we get further and further along, has your opinion of this deal changed, or from the get-go, have you been on board that, hey, this deal is going to go through, and this is not something that is going to be stopped at the end of the day?
Yeah, I maybe tempered expectations a little bit. I was pretty sure it was going to easily go through when it got announced. And then, you have senators or representatives in Congress tweeting out things and saying things. And then you hear comments like, yes, we're definitely going to have to review that. And then I scratch my head a little bit. But the more I've thought about it, I think it's probably like a 90-10 if I had to put betting odds on it, that it'll go through. And that article, I didn't read it because I don't subscribe to Bloomberg, but I was amazed that someone was like, oh, look, this stock is trading under the offer price by like 12 to 20%. That means it's going to fail. That is a lot of prognostication you're doing on a market price. Like people no, I don't know. This is maybe getting too into the weeds, but
No,
Go
go right
for
ahead.
it.
That's what you want. Go for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, go for it. Because Hogue explained it, right? He said it out there. He said a video, but you explain it, Ray. Why was that so off base? Like that was a ridiculous statement from somebody who supposedly, writes
well,
for
I don't think
Bloomberg.
Jason has an economics degree, or a finance degree. I don't know. Maybe he does. I don't.
I don't know either.
Does he have a journalist degree? I'm starting to question that in myself. I'm sorry.
Why are you talking about your best friend like that?
What?
Man?
I don't
Stop.
know. He blocked me, the asshole. I just asked him why he hates Xbox so much. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ray.
A hair trigger on
Yes,
account.
he does have a hair trigger. He blocked his wife. So let's go. Anyways,
He's married? That's surprising.
yeah.
What? People put so much weight on the price of a share. And I mean, that's how we value companies, right? When we talk about market cap, all we do is we take the most recent price of one share and we multiply it by all the shares that there are. But that's not how you sell all the shares, right? You can't just price one thing on the margin and then apply it to everything. I mean, it's a practical expedient. You can't go out there and ask every shareholder, hey, what would you sell yours at? What would you sell yours at? That's what the stock market is, in a sense, doing, right? It's sort of like an open cry auction house. And it's just every second there's a new lot going up for sale and people are bidding on it. And you either transact because you're bidding above their asking price or you don't. And so that's what the stock price is. It's a functional way to move shares from one owner to another. And it's at the clearing price. It's just easy for us to then apply that clearing price to the business as a whole, forgetting the fact that you can't sum what one individual investor did. So if Mav owned shares in Microsoft and I bought them from him at $100 a share, and Pong, you had some shares, you could say, well, I could sell them for $100 now too. And you come to me and you're like, I want to sell you mine for $100. I'm like, no, I'm out of cash. So at that point, if we're the only three people in the market and we're out of money, what are your shares worth? You can't sell them. Are they worth less? No, but they're priced at zero right now. So the share price it's not indicative of, it's not fully indicative of what's going to happen in the future. I'm not trying to strip it out entirely, but people put way too much weight on that. And then who knows why it's trading 20% under or 15% under? You can ascribe oh yeah, people don't think it's going to go through, but you could also just say interest rates are skyrocketing right now.
Correct.
This deal has anywhere from probably 6 to 9, maybe 12 months to close. So you have to hold on to that cash to get a 12% bump when maybe you could get 6 in an interest rate or 9.2 on an inflation protected bond. I think they went to with the CPI. So you're taking 3% upside. Maybe you could do more with that capital over the next year by buying shares in a depressed asset. The NASDAQ is down, the Dow is down over 1,100 points today. So instead of locking up money in something that's not 100%, but maybe close, for in a real return and after inflation return of potentially 3%, maybe you just buy some shares that are down 30% and have way more upside potential. So I don't know. It gets under my skin when people ascribe things to market prices and say, I know the reason that it's trading here.
Right.
Because you don't. There's millions of participants in the stock market. And so you can't interview them all to understand why a share traded at one price versus another.
And I would say that Warren Buffett taking his percentage from 1.5% up to 9.5% kind of indicates that he may disagree with the reasoning behind that, right? I mean, it shows that he's got confidence that this is definitely going to go through, right?
Yeah, he's taking arbitrage. He's looking at 3%. And he's at the point where he has so much money,
right?
So much money. It's hard to make a return on it.
Sure.
If you got $100, you can turn it into $200 pretty easy. You got $100 million, it's harder, but you can do it. $200 million. You have $100 billion. It's way more difficult to turn it into $200 billion.
Sure.
Because you just run out of things that are actively producing income at a rate that will support $200 billion valuations. There are not very many companies that big.
I know. I
And
have
so
that
he's
problem
looking
every
at
day.
that like, here's a place where I can put $5-6 billion and maybe get 3-4% real return on it. Why not?
Right. Why not? Right. At the end of the day. And again, it just shows his confidence, because he wouldn't have done that if he didn't have confidence. He doesn't generally go out on too many limbs. He takes pretty safe bets because he understands what's happening.
Most of the time.
So most of the time.
Yep.
Most of the time. Right. Every once in a while there's a gamble in there, but not this one. He seemed pretty confident because he came out right away and said this was not the manager, this was me. So definitely seems like he personally believes in this one for sure. Mav, you got anything to add on the Activision Blizzard side of things, brother? Because I know your best friend has been making a lot of headlines lately. You pissed him off. Hopefully you guys can make up later and you can be unblocked.
Yeah, I did. He just saw a random comment, like he didn't know who I am. I don't care. I don't ever want him to know who I am. I feel like there's be some like agenda-based book about one of us and the future potentially, and who knows. No, I agree with like Ray. Like, there's a lot of talk out there that seems like it's not really knowledge based. It's very opinion based, and from a perspective without any knowledge in the field, right? So you're giving like kind of like we're speculating, right? We're here. We can have dumbass opinions, and it's okay, right? Because I'm not sitting there writing for Bloomberg, right? Or another major, financial magazine or, investment, antitrust. People look into this stuff as like legitimate. They go to certain places for legitimacy, right? And with that, to me, it holds a certain responsibility. Okay. And when you either abuse or without knowledge are misusing that responsibility, it can come off as an agenda, right? And because regardless of whatever purpose you think it has, when you keep focusing the same narrative based on your own perceptions, then that's not really what a journalist is supposed to do, right? And especially when it comes into the worlds like this, right? When you're reporting on a specific deal, right? We've seen a lot of opinion-based journalism take hold over the last decade that's kind of ruined media for a lot of us, right? And it's invaded video game space just like anything, but what we see now is anytime anything is looked at, even with normal procedure, regardless if it's different under a certain administration than it was previously, relegating information to where things seems like a doomsday scenario because of things that are just pretty commonplace seems to be something that's used quite frequently. I can go back several times and look at several different statements that were made, or tweets that were quote tweeted, or articles pulled from, or not articles, but comments pulled from Reddit, like videos pulled from obscene places to further agendas and further narratives based on some people's personal opinions that get put out there to potentially help sales of a book that you have about to come out, right? There's certain things that are going on out there that are we get talked about a lot, and I really appreciate when people like Hoglaw out there have a platform, because they do have that experience, right? They do have direct knowledge of how these processes work. Right. One of the reasons I like having you on the show, because guess what? You do know a little bit about investments and investment groups and how the procedures work on mergers and stuff like this as well, because that's the world that you live in and you deal with on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
Regardless if you have a writing degree or not, right? So it comes to a point where I think there's a lot of BS out there that adds fuel to the fire and makes things bigger, and also causes problems maybe where there never would have been in the first place. Because once this news starts getting circulated about this stuff from big articles that are just trying to poke the bear, all of a sudden you have a lot of interest out there in this topic that really was none before. And that's where the agenda aspect comes into play. Like, I remember immediately the day after the Activision Blizzard deal was announced, uh, or immediately after, Jason Schreier himself posted a comment. If I was blah 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 blah, I'd be contacting the FTC or whatever right now. You know what I mean? And then now you continue to see these articles continuously being put out and put out and put out about different things shedding a negative light onto all this stuff. And I get maybe not everybody's for the consolidation era and for all this stuff, but like leave personal feelings out of it and just kind of report on the facts, right? And I feel like the whole share price fiasco article was shot down dramatically, and it caused him to go on a blocking spree about anybody that could dispute his perception of the truth. And it's interesting that we're in this space, man. Like, because this is so crazy. When we started this channel 2 years ago, Pong, and like Fun Speculation, I never imagined like all the shit that would go down in these in this year and a half period. I mean, it's absolutely insane where we were just at that point to where we are now, right?
We did kind of see it. We said
we
buckle
talked
up
about
for
it. We
this
saw
generation
coming.
was going to be crazy interesting, right? And there was so much change going on that we were going to see. But of course, if you look at the specific, like Activision Blizzard being sold to Xbox, hell no, none of us saw that coming. Everybody thought Activision Blizzard was doing so well, but obviously internally they had a lot of cancer, and you don't see that stuff until it happens, right? But that is the exciting part. We knew there would be a lot of big change, but the stuff that we're talking about right now, you're right, Mav. There's no way we could have crystal balled a lot of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
We never would have seen this coming.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I just think that man, it's a pretty crazy space to look at and judge, and I think it's scaring some people, right? That are like traditionalists and oh, I love this industry, and man, like you got to look at all the upside, everything we're getting as consumers, right? If everything is in place to protect the consumer, and the consumer is the number one concern, that is, we're not being negatively affected right now, right? In any kind of way that can be pointed to as direct evidence that I can see. So, as far as Activision Blizzard, man, I don't know. What are the realistic hurdles that they still have to face? So you said 90% potentially you think it's going through. Like, what contingencies do you think they may have to make?
Oh, well, it's a good question. It's a big question. I don't know where they are. I haven't checked recently in their review processes across different jurisdictions too, right? Like the EU has been much more aggressive on this sort of thing. So who knows? Maybe they have to sell off subsidiaries or IPs in that area, maybe, or they have to guarantee that they won't. I don't know. Sometimes companies give concessions, like they have to publish on other platforms for 5-10 years, something like that. I could see that happening. I just really would be amazed if they blocked this deal from going through. I think the FTC can ask for a formal review, and I'm pretty sure that happened. And then I don't know the full timetable of that. And I think it's in 2 phases typically. So you'll get one where they request a bunch of discovery documents, just emails between the companies on this merger, emails from executives talking about it, let's see if they're talking about price fixing. Let's see if they've put together spreadsheets where prices are going to raise, overnight. Generally, you don't get too many smoking guns. Companies are pretty good about that nowadays, but that does happen. However, when they're talking about it, because it's more opinion-based, right? Is this going to be impactful? Isn't it? You'll usually see the strategic ideas, right? Like, here's where we can integrate this pipeline. Here's where we can build on this product. Here's where we can guarantee the value of Game Pass, or we can give these games for free. Then they might start doing a deeper review. I think they have like 2 phases. I don't know that I've heard that they've entered like a really significant review process. But I would expect that might happen. And even still, I think they'd go through that, and then they might have some proposals. They might try to settle. I would be surprised if they went to court, but I'm surprised they went to court on MGM. I guess I missed that news story, but I think the same outcome would be likely. I mean, it's the same kind of idea. I know Amazon sells a whole bunch of stuff in warehouses, but I mean, their bread and butter now is AWS. I mean, they're really a technology company, is their profit center. So it's a similar sort of thing where they diversified into media, similar to Microsoft, and they're able to distribute it. And I don't think having the distribution platform is going to harm the consumer, which is what you would hope that the agency would be reviewing. Now, I think it becomes less attractive, but still doable if you have to sell off your European assets. But
Ray, let me correct something. They did not actually wind up going to court for the Amazon deal.
Okay.
So just let's clarify. I thought it was that they had gone to court, but you are correct. They had not gone to court. The FTC just missed the deadline. They did not make the mid-March deadline to take legal action. So Amazon just closed the deal. So that's what it is. So let me correct that.
Okay. Probably similarly, they were reviewing, maybe we're having discussions and saying, here's what we could think, and they just felt they never weren't going to build a case that would be viable. Because from my understanding, it's pretty rare for the FTC to take a company to court without feeling pretty solid about the case that they're going to bring.
Right.
Also, because you don't want to be seen as just interfering to interfere, right? The idea about American capitalism is that largely the government gets out of the way and lets the companies operate. Now, that's a bigger economic and economic political discussion that you can have about what is the right balance here, but generally speaking, that's why I would be surprised if the FTC, because it's just the way that the USA operates. Now, in Europe, I do wonder if that would be more of a hurdle. So to answer that's a big, long-winded way to say, Mav, I think that's the linchpin. I'm not sure what will happen in the EU.
Right, and if it gets moved through the FTC and everything's okay, let's say there's a hang up in the EU, right? You're saying that, okay, we don't know what would happen, but what are some viable options at that point, right? Like sell off, you said, like the European studios and leave them out of it. And I'm wondering how many European studios are actually in Activision Blizzard as well. I know there's quite a few, but how much of
they might have to sell off those subsidiaries that are operating in the EU. They might have a settlement where they have to distribute through a different platform, or they have to. There's so many different possibilities. The most likely would be you just have to sell off this business, and you can't own or license the IP inside of the EU economic zone.
Right, and so this is like. I would imagine, like, I don't really know how these processes work. They've
got 7 studios over there, Mav.
They got 7. Are they all looking at this at once, or does it go through like a pipeline? Okay, FTC is good, then it goes to the next, and then they look at it, or is this just like all of them are doing their own investigating right now, and each of them will approve at different time frames?
Yeah, each jurisdiction has its own process, and they run independently, right? So I'm way less familiar with the EU process, so I don't want to say here's what they would do or here's what's going to happen. But I assume that something at the European Commission or something with their version of the federal agencies that are in charge of competition would be going through this review currently, and I'm sure that they're requesting things from the European entities to look into, and I'm sure they're asking for things from the American parent companies. Now, you get pretty fraught, and I'm not an international lawyer by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know how much does or doesn't have to be divulged in those processes. That said, I think you want to be as transparent as possible to a large portion of your customer base is covered by that jurisdiction. So I think that they would really try to actively work to resolve any issues that those regulators have.
Right. I've seen the number one contingency being put out there is that they would have to release Call of Duty on all platforms and stuff like that, which it seems like something they've already said they're going to do anyway to try and get ahead of this, right?
Yep. Yeah, I was just say they. I think I forget the gentleman's name, but he was like an executive vice president or chairman board. I forget someone on the board, and came out and said, "Here's our commitment to this," and then they had some open source stuff. Like they were really trying to get ahead of the messaging and saying like, this is not about building a walled garden around availability of content. This is really about reaching scale at delivering content effectively and efficiently to a mass market audience, because that's their stated goal. They've said like there's 2 billion people or something like that that play video games in some form or another.
Yeah, I think they said the market
is
is 3 billion or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's reaching all of those consumers that's really what they're trying to do.
Right.
Now, I mean, you need the regulators to believe you. So I think, again, you can caveat it until the cows come home, which I usually do. But I do have confidence that this is going to go through and that it would only be small things like that, which they were aware of. And it seems like we're willing to concede in the first place when they bought the company.
Yeah, it's almost seeming like more as it's coming out, Microsoft already understood what the challenges were going to be, and really from their messaging from the get-go was 100% on top of this. So you have to kind of give credit to their I guess lawyers who handle this and everybody that knew exactly what the ticking points were going to be with the FTC and everything to know exactly what potentially could be a hurdle, because it seems like they've been on top of that every step of the way, and why Satya Nadella was so confident in his statement saying that that this was going to go through, and there should be no reason why it won't. But we also have another thing, Pong. I mean, before we get out of here, I mean, Ubisoft is out there and they're going through the same thing. I mean, do we have time to talk about that?
Yeah, Ray, do you still got a little bit of time?
I've got maybe 20 minutes, guys.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. We can get you out of here in 20 minutes. So I'll get you quick thoughts on this one. So yeah, Ubisoft has been in news recently because there was a report that they might be looking to be acquired. But as the story has kind of evolved, it sounds more like the Guillemot family wants to retain control. And what they're looking to try to do here, I'm reading from Seeking Alpha, I think it is the site. The Guillemot family owns 15.9% of the company's shares and 22.3% of the net voting shares. They are trying to actually not have a takeover situation. We've seen them fight this off in the past. They fought off a takeover. So what they're looking to do is more to find a what do I want to say here? They want to partner, right, with a firm like a Blackstone or like a KKR to try to kind of basically insulate them from any type of Xbox, acquisition or Sony acquisition. I'm just throwing these out there. Tencent acquisition. I'm just throwing these out there as the major players that everybody knows. But really, what they're trying to do is maintain control of this. When you look at Ubisoft, Ray, and what they've done, right? And we've seen them kind of flounder here recently, just as far as gamers go. Of course, they just announced that obviously that Assassin's Creed had just gone over the $1 billion mark. But overall, Ubisoft is bloated. They've got over 20,000 employees worldwide. And it seems like that they're kind of floundering in this new industry. They don't know which way they want to go with their games. They've announced games and then pulled back those games because of the reception that they've had and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know how much you've looked into this, Ray, as far as what they're looking to do to find a investor to come in and kind of just be the money man to, kind of prop them up while they figure all this stuff out so they don't get taken over. What are your thoughts on Ubisoft and where they're going here? And what do you see as far as the potential for an acquisition or for this? It really is an acquisition anyways, but you know what I'm saying? Not an acquisition from within the industry, but using outside investment groups to kind of prop themselves up and insulate themselves from a hostile takeover situation. What do you think?
They've done that before, haven't they?
Yes, they have. Yes. Right. They fought it off once
from
already.
Vivendi.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Vivendi, correct.
Yeah, they've got a huge voting block. The 22% is pretty big. And it's difficult because if they own 22% of the voting shares and they're on the management and they have representatives on the board, you exercise an outmoded amount of control over the business decisions of that public entity, because it's technically a public company. I mean, it sounds like 78% of the equity is owned by other people. Those situations get a little fraught. I don't know the laws in the EU as well. I can use maybe an American examples as an allegory, and it might be close, but there might be big differences. So just take that with a grain of salt. But if you have a business where the management group owns 22% and they're on the board and they don't want to do a deal, you have to go hostile to take them over. You have to take the deal to that 78% of people directly, and you have to convince them to go with you. Now it gets a little fraught, because typically when people say the word shareholder, or like, oh, the shareholders vote, or the shareholders did this, it's not the individuals who actually ultimately own the economic value of that shares. It's typically the brokerage firms that own the shares on your behalf. And usually the vast majority of these shares are actually owned through pension funds or retirement plans, 401ks, etc. That's where a lot of the money comes through. And then it's aggregated by asset managers, the biggest being BlackRock, FMR Corp, or you've probably heard of them as Fidelity, is a huge one. I mean, there are many others out there, but BlackRock and Vanguard are the two biggest. They manage trillions of dollars worth of money. Now, from their perspective, they have a fiduciary responsibility to tell their investor, the people whom they're managing the money for, because it's your 401k. They have to get you, an envelope. You have to vote on this share, and how do you want to vote on it? They don't hear back from 99% of the people who actually own the shares. So it falls to those asset managers and brokers to actually vote in the instance for the shareholders. What's going to happen? So you don't want to be in a position where, Mav, you have Pong's money. You gave it to me. I tell you we should do this with it. You say, hey, Pong, what do you think about it? And you don't hear from him. Now you got to
let me look at what's best for me at this point. You know what I mean? Hey, thanks for giving me that money, Pong. I'm going to make my best decision for myself.
That was my last $5, by the way.
Yeah.
No.
It went to
So
gas.
what ends up happening is that these brokers and investment management firms just vote the way that the board recommends, because the board is already fiduciarily bound to act in the best benefit of the shareholders. That legally in America, that's what they have to do. I believe there's something very analogous in the European Union. So it's very difficult to make a value proposition to enough people, to the market more broadly, to bring an offer that would be worthwhile, where those investment managers vote against what the board recommends, especially because you have management of the company and the board of directors own 22% of the company. It becomes acrimonious. So I don't know if they have similar laws, but if you want to take the company private, you do have to do it. If you were in the management group and you're part of the board and you own 22% of the voting shares, you do have to do it in a way that is not screwing over those other 22 or 78%. Excuse me.
Right.
You can't do a transaction to the detriment of the public, because you
can't do a
20%.
bad deal at the end of the day.
Exactly. And you have to hire a whole bunch of advisors. You have to go through a whole bunch of rigmarole to come to a price that you can offer those other investors. So it sounds like they're trying to hire a firm who both can do that due diligence and perhaps line up the financing for that family to then take on the debt to own even more of the company. That sounds like what it is. And that happens a lot, but I mean, not a lot, but often enough that it's not unheard of.
Right.
Interesting.
And so, depending on the economics of the business, they'll hire a company to come in, do the due diligence, see if they can fund the purchase of that 78% equity outstanding, or even if they just want to purchase 50, to get to 50% of it, that's doable too. And so that they would have a small minority interest that is a public shareholders. But I find that vastly more probable or possible than them getting a buyout offer that they then go ahead and accept. I think that family likes running that business.
Yeah,
For sure. That's obvious. They again, when Vivendi came in and tried to do the hostile, they tooth and nail, right? They pulled out all the stops to prevent that from happening. And it sounds like they're in the same boat. They don't care. They want to keep maintaining. And like you said, maybe, and the word I was trying to remember before, it was private equity firm. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Anyways, private equity firm, and bringing in a private equity firm to potentially, like you said, increase their own shares and their own control even more so to stabilize and to obviously, prevent that from ever happening again. Again, it seems like this is what the family wants. So, I mean, again, like you said, being that they are the main players, being that they are the management, that they run everything, it makes more sense that they would want to do something like that since they don't seem to want to get out of the business. And so what are you going to do? You got to protect yourself and you got to make sure that you're insulated from that potential takeover. Mav, you got any thoughts on it? Ubisoft and what they're trying to do here, man?
Yeah, I just hope whatever comes from them, they stop getting out of this damn free-to-play, like, Tom Clancy bastardization nonsense,
As long as we get our Splinter Cell single player stealth action
I'm
game,
all
we're
for
good.
it, man. Like, I personally, I understand that family and really wanting to. This is a situation where I actually would like a move to be made, away from the family, and this is, I mean, a counter to what a lot of people may agree with or whatever. I'm not sure, but from my perspective, in seeing interviews and all this kind of stuff from them before, they are like almost the opposite of what Embracer Group is doing right now, right? Where they have streamlined the process of these are the types of projects we're going to approve, right? And we're getting some, right? Like the Splinter Cell is a sliver of hope for me, right? Splinter Cell remake is a sliver of hope. We still got like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. That rumors are that could have been the last mainline Far Cry, and the next one could be more of this other stuff. But it seems like, and this goes back a long time for Ubisoft, right? It's not just Ubisoft today. Whatever is working, whatever the trend is what all of their projects are going to be funneled into. And it seems like most of their decisions are all based on focus group type thinking, market research type thinking, and you lose the heart and soul. A lot of the IP that a lot of the creative talent has generated and created over young Ubisoft, right? When they were more creative and explored more different ideas and did more different things. So part of me wants to see them move on away from that family to have some more freedom to explore a bunch of different types of things, because they got the whole Clancy brand, they got Assassin's Creed, they got Far Cry, Prince of Persia, some of my favorite franchises, period, right? Now, is there glimmer of hope? Yes. Maybe they've learned from some of their lessons. Maybe they're giving us a little bit to offset all the other shit, right? Because Heartland and X Defiant and Skull and Bones and all these other things that we all got announcements on within a short period of time are all coming, right? And we got Splinter Cell. So that's like 5 for 1. I don't know if that's a fair trade-off, right? So I'm thinking that, and this is based on discussions I've had with people that are familiar with the inner workings of Ubisoft as well, that have maybe done work for them before and stuff, that, hey, maybe it's not the best place for creatives to get their ideas across. And when they go out there and they announce these things, and they announce a Tom Clancy game in a warehouse with graffiti on the walls and, and skateboards going around, and, you got neon hair and stuff, and it's a Clancy game.
X Games. X Games, the first person shooter.
Tom Clancy meets X Games. Yeah, let's go.
Mountain Dew Monster sponsors. Yeah.
It's coming across like they've kind of lost the plot a little bit. And you can see the same people that made like commercials for cereal in the 90s and the 80s are probably the ones coming up with the ideas for the games right now at Ubisoft, right? So I a part of me wants something to happen there. I don't know overall what the best case scenario is. Again, Xbox hands are tied right now. It seems like whatever's happening with Ubisoft, whatever is happening with WB Games, is potentially all going to happen before this Activision Blizzard deal it goes through, right? And if that's the case, then maybe that means that the Xbox can't get involved with that. My money right now, I'm on Xbox because I like what they're doing, right? But Amazon could be in play. That would be like something they could do something like that. But then you don't know if you're going to get console games, right? So man, I don't know. The whole equity thing, private equity thing scared me. Like it was like 2 weeks ago or a week ago when I first saw that, and it seemed like they were looking to potentially sell to some just investment group that didn't really care about gaming. That was just in it for the investment of it, right? And that was even worse, right? So I don't know what to think about where the direction is. That's one of the reasons I asked you on, Ray, because you've actually had a lot of insight into this, because I didn't really think about that aspect, right?
Yeah, and it really depends on whom they're partnered with and how they structure out the equity at the back end, right? I think Strauss Zelnick ran a PE firm and took over or took a huge stake in Take-Two at one point. I think that's why he runs that now. Now, so you can have a successful business be operated. We can argue about how great Take-Two is doing recently with recent departures out of their main Rockstar studio and the long lead times, but they have produced some phenomenal games. It would be great if Ubisoft had flexibility to do that, but the problem comes, is that what they want to do? I think perhaps the Eves family wants to do these live service games, wants to chase that cash flow effect. And I don't know that it's even the capital markets that are pushing them to do that. Because I mean,
yeah, I agree.
Honestly, from the way that they're owned and the equity structured, like they don't have that much pressure to get it. In America, you can oust a CEO in this situation. The board can get too much pressure put on them, but I mean, it has to be a pretty aggressive, poor performance before that happens.
So I remember,
I hope you're right.
I remember in an interview back with, I think it was Ryan McCaffrey on IGN and Unfiltered or something, where Eves was being interviewed by Ryan. Right. And then Eves was like, the devs don't want to make these kind of open, the devs don't want to make games like Splinter Cell. They only want to make open world games now. Right. And I'm like,
yeah, because I told them that's what they want to make.
Right. And I remember seeing that interview. I'm like, but like devs, a lot of devs are gamers at heart as well. Right. Like, and a lot of devs, I know, like they talk about these franchises, they talk about, and it's like a dream for a lot of them. And based on talking to some devs that have been in discussions and in meetings where these creative design processes are made, they are pitched frequently and get shot down. And instead, stuff like this is put out there, right? So the arguments that were made in the past, and this was back when, okay, Ubisoft only made games like Far Cry, and they turned Assassin's Creed to fit that model, right? And then all of that stuff. And then, now it's the live service thing, right? So, I just want, I like companies and game publishers to give the creative freedom to the developers. I understand there has to be some kind of, got to make sure there's return on investment. You got to make sure you're doing what's best for the company. It's all a business at the end of the day. But from my perspective, what's usually best for the business is usually what is the best product, right? And I think a lot of times these publishers lose the plot a little bit on that. And Ubisoft has suffered recently with their market share plummeting about half in the last 2 years or so compared to what they were valued at previously. So they haven't been really killing it with their model, even with an Assassin's Creed becoming $1 billion franchise, where we've seen other publishers' values increase, right? Them and Activision Blizzard have plummeted. Activision Blizzard, obviously, with all the scandal stuff. Ubisoft has some scandal in there as well. Another reason why I would like to see the family being moved on, because clearly they can't handle that and they have the wrong people in place and are not really taking action on that aspect as well. So for me, a takeover of Ubisoft right now is not a bad thing. I would like to see it happen. It seems like they're going to be fighting against that. I don't know which company could potentially pull it off. Xbox definitely would not be. So the only ones available to actually feasibly pull something off like that, which I think, Ray, you're saying that cards are stacked against them, would be potentially somebody like an Amazon or like a Tencent, which I wouldn't want that either. Or some kind of really large entity to kind of overpay dramatically to get the shareholders to not be able to ignore it.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, maybe in Amazon. I don't know that they like to do aggressive takeovers.
Yeah.
I mean, aggressive bids are not. Even when you buy the business, like it's
not a good.
They usually don't work because usually so many people are pissed off about the whole process that you lose so much of the management. Now, I mean, to your point,
maybe that'd be a good thing with Ubisoft.
Maybe that's a good thing,
right?
But you lose a lot of the institutional ability to manage the business day to day. That's what people forget about. Like, it's great to have a change of leadership, but when you have middle managers who are operating a multinational business, and then you have, it's this whole process. You don't know if you're going to have a job. You're hearing the news stories every day. You have no actual transparency into it because it's only the senior leadership who are legally allowed to discuss these details because it's, insider information. You just get sick of it. And then so you quit, and it can protract. Like it can be 18 months that these aggressive bids can sit in the market. And so screw it, I'll just get a job at a different company, and then you lose the ability to actually effectively run the business because you've lost a lot of the talent in the meantime. So that's why most companies refrain from going hostile. PE firms are a little bit more aggressive about it because they don't so much care about the continuing operation of the business. They care about loading it up on debt, paying themselves a dividend, and then reselling it to whomever will give them the most money for whatever constituent parts are left because they weren't intending to keep the business together anyway. So I don't know. I'd be surprised. Maybe a Tencent could do it. I don't know that a company operating in the video game publishing space right now would go to Ubisoft.
So it would be one of those private equity firms. Maybe the ones that were rumored before, as opposed to the ones that now Ubisoft is seeking out.
But you do believe
approach somebody and want to make it. Who knows? Maybe they get a change of heart. That's the only way I could really see it.
Right.
But you do believe, Ray, that if the Gilmore family is approaching private equity firms, that they are attempting and they can cut the deal where they still maintain all that control and the private equity just don't have anything to do with it, right?
Sorry, yeah. Well, they might have something, but okay. But this a difference from like that's I forget the exact word, but they're inviting that offer. They're trying to work proactively instead of a PE firm just saying like, hey, we raised $40 billion that we can borrow against and buy your company.
Right.
So here's the
offer.
It's a
partnership more so than anything.
Exactly. So I think what they're doing is trying to protect from that aggressive hostile bid by doing this amenable deal that they're working actively with the provider of capital on that.
Right. Makes sense. Man, this was great conversations, Ray.
Great.
Thank you, sir. Bro,
Thank you,
this
guys.
is why we love you.
Going.
Yeah, no. We appreciate you. We got through all the major ones that we wanted to get through today. Obviously, there was some other news, but this is why we brought you on. Talk numbers, get the inside stuff that that you handle, that you can see. You have a different perspective because you're in the business, right? So again, us armchair CEOs, we like to talk about this and we have a good time, but to have somebody with actual real world knowledge about how this stuff goes down. Look, this was an extremely informative PM in the PM. We loved having you here, brother, and appreciate it so much. You giving us extra time too and sticking around for us to get through the final one, which was Ubisoft. What a great night. Look, we're going to get you out of here, bud. So tell everybody, because again, like I said in the intro, if you're not following CMBR, Lil Ray, you're missing out because he does. Outside of his busy work schedule, which keeps him outside a lot, and he's in the real world doing stuff, he does tweet, and he does make some really good points. I've followed him and looked through his Twitter. He does really have some great opinions. So tell everybody where they can find you, sir, and what you got going on here.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Pong. I'm at CMBR, like the cosmic microwave background radiation _Ray. That's it. I do some tweets. It's mostly noise in the background. I've been silent, not silent, but way down since the turn of the year. It is, like you said, just been crazy busy at work. That has unfortunately limited me from my other hobby, which is writing for lordsofgaming.net. Just because I'm not writing actively over there doesn't mean you shouldn't be over there reading the articles. There's a great group of people writing for that website, and they're doing really cool work. They just did a whole week with, part of the team was out at PAX East. They were doing deep dives, developer interviews. I mean, all sorts of cool reporting. So definitely please go check that website out, support the work. A lot of the volunteer, it's just an everyday group of people who really love video games, who are passionate about communicating about it, leading that site. So again, Pong, man, this was super fun. I love geeking out about this stuff. I can get a little bit too into the weeds sometimes.
I love it, man.
We love the weeds, brother.
But I just want to say thank you so much for the invite. It's always a pleasure to chat with you guys. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was great to have you here, brother. Can't tell you enough again that just to have, again, information like you is such a great resource. That's why this community is so awesome. We have people from all walks of life in the real world who can provide these different types of conversations and these different types of information that we just don't have. And I appreciate it so much that you take the time to come here with us and spend a night here doing this, brother. So thank you again. Mav, man, what a great night, man. We talked about this in the DMs. We knew this was going to be a fun one. Perfect timing. Again, we could not have planned it out better with Embracer Group happening this week to have Lil Ray on here, man.
Crazy.
Tell everybody what you got coming up for the rest of the weekend here, man, and what you got going down.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about Fortnite coming back to Apple via Xbox.
Bro, that's going to be a big talk.
That is be a huge. So, I mean, that is a huge deal. That cannot be overlooked, and this is only the start of what's to come from that perspective. And Ray mentioned earlier that 2 billion to 3 billion gamers. This is the avenue that's starting that approach. That's going to drive a lot of that success, and be ready, because it's going to get pretty crazy. And I'm curious if Apple's looking to do anything about it.
No Game Pass required.
Yeah,
bro.
just
that's
free.
So
man.
insane.
It is. You can just go to xbox.com/play on any mobile device, and you're good to go. You can play Fortnite if you got a connection that can handle it. That is pretty insane. That's the world
with touch controls
right now.
They even integrated touch controls.
No installation. You can use a controller. You can use that. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's insane. More games, I guarantee you, will come this way as well. So we'll be talking about that and more tomorrow night on Xbox Ultimate Podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern Time with an amazing panel. So tune in to that show right here on Fun Speculation on YouTube. Also, look out for FSP Fun Speculation Podcast now on Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going late on Mondays now and beating all the traffic, getting out of the way, and we're going to have a blast with the late night crowd on Monday nights. Wednesdays, we had a blast last night on Fun Pop, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, all that stuff. Happy May the 4th, belated to everybody again. And then, every Thursday here with PM in the PM with Pong and I. Sometimes we have guests like the awesome Ray. And then sometimes it's just Pong and I, but we always have a blast on this show. Chat, you guys were freaking amazing. Packed the whole way through, active the whole way through. Absolutely freaking love you guys and everything you bring to the channel. So, and hey, check out some random game streams. Follow on Twitter at Fun Speculation. Pong Soul. Hey, Ray, you may not, if you want to bail, this is going to take 15 minutes. So I'm just giving you a heads up.
Ray hit me up and he's like, I want to be a part of your outros, Pong. This is the only reason why I agreed to do the show tonight, just to hear your outro. That's what he actually said. So stop.
I do wish I could, but if it's going to be, I'm going to have to, I unfortunately will have to jump. My car is getting here in 5 minutes, guys. I want to say thank you. Thank you to the chat. Thank you for being stewards of the community. You guys are just always out there throwing positivity out for people, inviting people like me on. Just been wonderful. So thank you. Thank you for being stewards.
Yeah, appreciate
you. Have an awesome night, man. Appreciate it.
Have fun going to whatever fun thing you sound like you're going to, because you got a car arriving. I'm sure it's going to be a good time.
Is it a limo?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. No. Okay. All right. Fine. Well, I thought maybe the 60 hours a week work and you were treating yourself,
All right. Well, I mean, not that way.
Okay. All right. All right, Ray.
All right, bye,
Hey,
guys.
have a great
Later,
night,
man.
brother.
Take it easy.
Uh,
Pong Soul.
oh, yeah, no problem,
Fun
man.
show,
We'll get
man.
everybody out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro, this was great. It was awesome. Like I said, we couldn't have planned it any better. With Embracer happening, everything, it just
Yeah.
felt right in line. Sometimes it works that way. Sometimes it doesn't. This week it worked out properly. And again, I hope the chat, you guys, like Mav just said, all absolutely amazing. Sticking it out through all of this nearly 3 hours, coming up on 3 hours. You guys were absolutely incredible. Again, the conversations in there were fantastic. You guys were into it. And we hope that you learned something from Ray tonight too. Again, not just us, me and Mav, even though, again, combined, we have a lot of knowledge. We've been doing this. We've been paying attention to the industry for a long time, but to have somebody who actually works with these numbers every day and sees these types of transactions, now, we hope that you learned something and you enjoyed the conversation. Again, Ray is such a cool dude, man. Just an awesome guy that we just randomly met. Again, just being a part of this community and had him jump in. That's what I said before, is that's what's crazy. Is there all these people with real world experience out here, all these incredibly talented people in all different areas and different walks of life. And we get to meet them here. And sometimes they come in like this and be able to actually enhance and add to the conversations that we're having. So again, thank you all for being here. Love you. Nothing but respect for all of you. You know that each and every week. Again, we are nothing without all of you. Without an audience, it's just two talking heads looking at each other and sharing a good time, which is cool, but it's not the same, right? We want to enjoy it with other people as well. So thank you all for being here. Look, you can find me Pong Soul, Xbox, Twitter. You know the drill there. Tomorrow I will be on Xbox Ultimate. The question is, and people should probably start doing betting in the chat during Xbox Ultimate, is how late is Pong going to be this week, right? So again, my job runs over on Fridays, but I will be there. Xbox Ultimate tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock Central Time, right back here again. So I will see you then when I get there. But we're going to have a good time. Like Mav said, we didn't get to all the topics tonight. We're going to have some big conversations because people are sleeping on that Fortnite news. Again, when it first hit, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Then I started hearing about it, and I was like, wait, why aren't more people talking about this? This is huge news. So be there tomorrow night. Saturday morning, you're going to get all the goodness on Saturday morning. Living Split Screen, my brother from another, Steel Rain, and I, live, raw, and uncut, 3+ hours, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time, 3 p.m. UK time. We will be there to get your weekend started. That's right. We're going to talk about all this stuff, and it's going to go long. And you can jump out. You can jump in. We don't care. Do all your Saturday chores. I don't care. Just drop on in. We are over 500. We're headed towards that 1K. Look, Steele and I got a lot to talk about on Saturday morning, so please be there. Tell a friend. Bring a friend. I will be tweeting it out, obviously, so share it, please, if you can. Be there. Living Split Screen Saturday morning. Then, Saturday night, ending on the Shop Podcast, PTK Blam, Fuzzy Belvedere, myself. And this week, you get more fun speculation goodness because Lore Master Jasper is going to be joining us Saturday night on the Shop Podcast. So be there to end your Saturday night with great conversation, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock Central Time. Again, PTK Blam's channel. Go check him out, please. It's a great time on Saturday night. Be there. Next week, Xbox Factor Podcast. Don't know if I'm going to be there or not, but everybody else will be probably. Mav will be there. I know Archimedes is coming back. Box and Burger is coming back next week as well. And then we got VJ, N64 Josh, who is absolutely amazing as well. Xbox Factor Podcast, Mr. Boomstick's channel, Double Barrel Gaming. You guys all know it already, but if you don't, head on over there and subscribe. Dude's got so much content, it's ridiculous. Just be there Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 o'clock Central Time, all Xbox, all green talk. You're going to have a great time on Tuesdays. Thursday, be back here for PM and the PM. God willing, real life willing, we will be here, me and Mav. Who knows what's going to happen next week? Again, this is the time. We're approaching the real goodness here as we get closer to June and the showcases and all the shows start firing up. We're going to have more and more news each and every week leading up to that. So be there, buckle up, and be ready next Thursday, PM and the PM, right back here again. Otherwise, it's the golden age of gaming, people. Get out there and enjoy these video games. Trek to Yomi just dropped. Citizen Sleeper just dropped. Loot River earlier this week. I don't care what you're playing. Play it. Play what you love what you play. I'm going to talk to you all real soon. You have a great rest of your week. Have a great Friday. We'll see you this weekend or tomorrow night. Love you all. Mav, get us out of here. PM in the PM is over with.
Bye, everybody.